Welcome to the Windsor Board of Education meeting of Tuesday, April 16th. This time we could stand for the pledge and then a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. The next order of business is recognitions and acknowledgement. And the first is a proclamation regarding Teacher Appreciation Week of May 6th and May 10th. And I see we have our wonderful co-presidents of the WEA here. So I will read this, then I'd like them to come up and to congratulate them for their leadership. Proclamation commemorating Windsor Teacher Appreciation Week, May 6th through May 10th, 2024. Let it be known by all citizens of Windsor that whereas Windsor teachers are empowered to lead within and beyond the classroom, allowing them to best prepare young people to become contributing members of our community. Whereas our teachers challenge and inspire students every day to change the world. Whereas we hold Windsor teachers in high regard, understanding the value placed on their skills and abilities, and recognizing the impact that they have in our students' lives. Whereas our teachers play a crucial role in the development of a diverse student population and must continually adapt to meet the ever-changing needs of our children. Whereas the Windsor Board of Education is committed to investing in the current and next generation of educators that will lead our state school system into the future. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed on the 16th day of April, 2024, that the Windsor Board of Education hereby declares our appreciation to our teaching staff and proclaims the week of May 6th through May 10th as Windsor Teacher Appreciation Week. Windsor Board of Education, signed by myself on behalf of the board and by Dr. Terrell Hill, PhD, Superintendent of Schools. Guys,
it's just allergies from the pollen. I'm sorry.
Oh,
it's just
that
allergies.
worries.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks, good to see you.
thanks so much. Don?
Nice to see you again. Hi, good to see you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
I might not get this goes on. Can't go for 2 hours.
Everybody here, yeah? Squeeze.
Wait a minute.
Hang on.
Put those stilts on.
You can go up front.
I'm not sick. You should come over here.
Absolutely.
I'm not sick. It's all allergies. It's the pollen. I'm sorry.
The seasons are changing.
And I can't take anything else. I'm maxed out.
There you go. And a point of personal privilege, it's always wonderful to be part of Teacher Appreciation Week with my wife being a longtime teacher, retired here from the district, and my daughter being a current teacher in the district. So, great time. Thank you, guys. Next item is recognition of the Windsor Education Foundation grants for this year. And Dr. Hill, I know you're going to introduce Dr. Mallory.
Yes, so I'd like to call Dr. Michael Mallory first to present on the West Main grant for this school, 2024.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So happy to be here to talk about the generosity and the amazing partnership that we have here with the Windsor Education Foundation. I have here Ms. Danielle Hines with me. She's on the board with the Windsor Education Foundation, and she's going to talk a little bit about our partnership, but I want to thank them extensively because this year they contributed a substantial amount to continue to help our educators do the amazing work that they do on a day-to-day basis, inspiring, encouraging our students, and also providing new opportunities for them to have enriched learning opportunities. And so, that being stated, I'll pass it to you just to talk a little bit about this year and the process.
Great, thank you. Thank you for having me. On behalf of the Windsor Education Foundation, I am proud to announce that this year we awarded 9 grantees. The grantees spread across every school within a district, which is just simply amazing. That doesn't always happen, so I'm really happy about that. Grants included funding towards an electric stream program across 3 schools, a student-led business with the potential of lasting impact for years to come, as well as a leadership development program at the middle school. So I'm just really honored to be here. I appreciate the work of all the educators and all of you in this room for what you do.
And it should be noted that the amount this year that was awarded across the 9 was $11,686, which is amazing. And over the past decade, the Windsor Education Foundation has been pouring into our educators in this town, and we truly appreciate them for that. So thank you so much.
Of course.
Any questions for our presenters? I think I saw Mr. Halleck, then Mr. Madison. Mr. Halleck first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just had one question regarding the Sage Park leaders. What leadership activities and skills will the students be learning in this program?
Yes, we're going to call up our great, amazing worker, Ms. Taisha Serrano, who can speak a little bit to that.
Good evening, everyone. So for Sage Park, the leaders have been working on various activities. This specific grant, I believe, if I can remember from the top of my head, because there were a few, I believe it was a ropes course that they'll be doing, team building. Basically, it's going to be surrounded around team building. No, I'm good. Thank you. So it's activities around team building. Specifically, I believe it may be a ropes course, but yeah, that's what Sage Park will be working on.
And how many students will be participating?
I believe there were 40 for the Sage Park Leadership Program.
Roughly 40.
40, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's all the questions I had, though. Thank you so much.
Mr. Madison.
I really appreciate what the organization does. I'm going to ask a politically charged question, and I really apologize. Is this the same organization last year that funded the workshops between the high schoolers and the middle schoolers on gender and sexuality?
Windsor Education Foundation, yes.
Okay. I've said before publicly when I was a resident, I will say it now. I fully and strongly support the right of every consenting adult to do
Mr.
whatever they
Madison,
want.
that's not,
And I thank you for not putting controversial issues on this year. This is wonderful. I really appreciate it.
okay, thank you.
That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Ms. Cantor?
I was wondering how many students signed up for the electric guitar lessons that you were going to teach. There's one at the elementary level, the younger grades, and then at the high school, if you could tell me. I don't know if they signed up yet or how many are interested.
I think the total impact was 560.
And that's for both the elementary and the high school?
Correct.
I think the program offers a lot, all of the programs that you're donating to. I think it's a good thing.
Great.
Very good. And I think the kids will really have fun learning, and that's part of teaching, having fun learning. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cantor.
Mr. Wollaston?
Yes, thank you. Could you tell us a little bit more? I know we oftentimes see you guys come up here and just write checks. Can you just tell us a little bit more about how you guys are able to raise those funds and maybe about some more initiatives that you have that the public could hear that they could possibly also participate in to understand how we're able to support our students the way we are?
Absolutely. We do a lot of fundraising. We have a couple events coming up, so please attend. We plan to do a breakfast at Dom's. If you come, Dom's will potentially donate a portion of the proceeds from that day. More information to come on that. We have flyers. So a lot of our money comes from fundraising. We do a number of events. We have the Windsor Chamber auction that we participate in, which is next Friday? Yes, next Friday. We get money from that event. Additionally, donations, we collect receipts from Geisler's. If any receipt over $30, Geisler's will provide a percentage of that back to WEF. So it's really word of mouth, community participation, donations. You don't have to come to an event to send us a check. We will gladly take it. We take credit cards as well on our website. We have a annual event that we just started last year, which is Purse Bingo. We will be doing that annually. Please attend. It's $40. Men, you can attend. It's a wonderful birthday gift or Christmas gift or whatever holiday you may celebrate. It's all inclusive. So that's pretty much how we get our funding. We try to raise about $15,000 every year, and that money immediately goes back out to our educators. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Lockhart, then Ms. Taylor.
I just want to say thank you. Your efforts often are not seen, but you do make impact for us and our students. So thank you so much for the generous donation.
Ms. Taylor?
Thank you so much for all that you do. I remember back when I was on the leadership team at JFK for the PTO, if we couldn't figure it out, WEF always came through and helped us out with the things that we were doing there. I also want to lift the fact that, and even though it says it here in the packet, but for the folks at home, WEF is a 501c3. And so when you donate, that's a tax deductible donation. And my company matches.
Yes.
So we do that, and a lot of companies do match. So when you're thinking about how you can give to Windsor Public Schools, we don't take donations, but WEF does. So there's a way to get around to support the things that you do. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, and Purse Bingo was wonderful.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? I would like to thank you as well for what you do, putting the icing on the cake for us and doing things that the budget doesn't necessarily allow. So it's been a great addition over the years, what the organization has been able to do. Mr. Panos?
Well, I would just say that considering what's coming up with the budget here, maybe we could raise about $1 million.
I wish, Mr. Panos, that would be a dream for me. I'll keep you posted, though. I'll let you know what we do.
Okay, thanks so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Check photo. We'll take it back down.
Stilts. That's all right. And our student, and where's our student? Getting closer, getting closer. Can she go stand next to that?
Can you see?
Can't see Ayana.
Yes,
Sure, you come over here.
I can
I'm
see.
sure it's okay.
Stand over there, both of you.
I don't know my phone.
Thanks, Danielle.
Glad Mr. Panos talked about adding another $1 million to that, because that will also go well for a grant we'll have, make sure Team Paragon puts in for that as well. Next item is audience to visitor, and Ms. Daly, can you start that off?
Good evening. This is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. If anyone from the public would like to address the board, you may do so in two ways. You may type your name, address, and comment into the Q&A feature in the Zoom application, or you may speak by clicking Raise Hand or dialing *9 within the Zoom app. When you are called on to speak, you will be given 3 minutes to state your name, address, and comment. Please do not place your call on speakerphone. No comments can be made against the employees of the school district or children outside of your own. No comments will be made by the board at this time.
Thank you. And for people who are not in the room, or for people who are in the room, at the 2.5-minute mark, Ms. Taylor will raise a red card briefly, and at 3 minutes, she'll hold it up, and please, at that point, try to wind up your remarks. For people who are on the phone or online, if you don't see a card, she'll interrupt you at that 3-minute mark. So first, I'm going to take anybody in the boardroom who'd like to address the board tonight. You could come up, state your name, put your name down, and
hello, I'm Di Van Houten of 31 Bent Road. I'm just coming in to just make a comment. During the pandemic, much of the federal funding went for free lunches for all to ensure that no student was stigmatized by not being able to afford lunch. Stigmatized is the operative word here. A couple of months ago, my child came home to share with me that after she entered her code at the cafeteria, she heard a loud screeching sound, which she correlated as a skidding tire to coming to a stop. She said she was embarrassed. When she realized that I did not pay her lunch bill, she felt the stigma of being poor. She felt that all eyes were on her and others knew of our financial situation. She states that she hears other students get the same sound while she's standing in line. The sound is loud and brings shame on students who lack the parental responsibility to pay for their meal. Should a student feel a public shame if their parents are behind in payments? Should we trumpet the announcement of financial restrictions of family? Should a child with limited access to funding have their peers know their financial situation? I believe that sound effect and the socialized stigma should be removed from the cash registers at the school. Where is the equity when making a child feel shame with screeching and halting tire sounds? That sound is anxiety producing. Often the sound prior to a crash. This sound in the cafeteria needs to stop. I'm done.
thank you. Anyone else who'd like to address the board?
Hello, members of the board. My name is Tracy Zotter, and this is my daughter, Ariella Trafone, and we reside at 28 Spring Street, and she is a proud student at John F. Kennedy School. I am here today to say, first of all, I do not envy your positions when it comes to budget season, and I know this one was an incredibly hard one considering the fact that we had reassessments happening this year. I greatly appreciate all of the effort that went into the budget, and me and my daughter are here today to say that we understand that there is a very high likelihood that the town council might reject the 6.4% increase. I am rallying parents to show support at the town council meeting next week to try to thwart that, but we do understand that there is sensitivity given the increase. We want to talk today about the importance of our SEL specialists in our schools, especially at the elementary level. Given the fact that we have one school psychologist who has a caseload that I don't even know how she is able to manage, when there are kids that are struggling, like my daughter who suffers from anxiety, she benefits greatly from being able to go to the SEL specialist and talk out her feelings and get back into the classroom so she can learn. Ariella, I would love for you to be able to tell our board a little bit about the experience you've had with Miss Kotler.
The experience I've had with Miss Kotler is she's one of the most important SEL teachers in our school because she helps a lot of students, including me, on their emotions. And if it's only psychologists in schools, it won't they won't be able to just work on their own because they need someone to help them work throughout the school year and help a lot of kids learn. And a lot of the experience that I've had is she's helped me a lot when Miss Pierce isn't around. And I bet she does, and I bet a lot of psychologists do that. I bet a lot of SEL teachers do that at other schools too. So,
You did great. So we just ask that you have a lot of consideration put, if they do come back and ask for budget cuts, that you strongly consider keeping our SEL specialists in the school, especially at the elementary school level. They have been an invaluable resource considering the fact that these are COVID babies. They lost an entire year of social building skills. And as a parent who's just been able to get back in the buildings and get more involved, it's a needed resource. So please, we will fight the town council as much as we can to try to get that budget passed by them. And we just ask that if it doesn't happen, that you give consideration and figure out how we can keep them a resource for our students.
Thank you very much. Thank you both.
You did so good.
That's going to be a pretty hard act to follow. Is there anybody else who'd like to address the board tonight? Not seeing anyone here. Ms. Daly, is there anyone online?
There are attendees, but no one has their hand raised.
Okay. Without objection, I'm going to close audience to visitor. Audience to visitor is closed. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. And before we go through that, is there any item that anybody wants to have pulled?
Pull the financial, the first one.
Okay, so we're going to pull the financial. Any other one? Okay, is there a motion then?
I move the Board of Education approve consent agenda items 4B, enrollment report, 4C, food service report, and 4D, human resources report.
Is there a second?
A second.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Panos to accept items 4B, 4C, and 4D. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900. Is there another motion, Ms. Taylor?
Yes, I move the Board of Education approve consent agenda item 4A, financial report.
Is there a second?
A second.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Panos. And Mr. Panos, would you like to start off with a question?
Yes, Ms. Batchelor, could you tell us what the special ed tutors' salaries are in the red for, or maybe more a question, special ed director here.
So actually, I will answer that just because Mary Cristofaro and I were looking at this yesterday, actually, and today. So what had happened in this report came out before we discovered this. So in Munis, through the years, we've only had a job class as listed as tutors. And so depending on what supervisor or what principal hires the tutor will depend on what job class it goes into. So for an example, if a school principal, so I'll take Tricia since she's here. So if Tricia Lee hires a math tutor at Clover Street School, HR will see that Tricia Lee or Raquel Cintron, her admin assistant, put that posting in and they will charge it to Clover Street School. If different administrators other than principals enter tutors into the system, it flags it as a special ed tutor when in actuality, it could be other tutors within the building, not special ed specific. So we have a list that we finalized earlier today of what regular ed tutors, and so when I say regular ed tutors, that's reading tutors, math tutors, and MLL tutors that were charged to the special ed line that should not have been. So I can do one of two things. I could resend this report tomorrow morning to show you the difference, because I don't believe it's going to be in the red, and if it is, it's going to be a couple thousand, but then the regular ed tutor salary is going to come down,
It's not going to have 181,000.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. And, just, well, the other red item, is a slight amount, though. It's only 65 out of $1.6 million. So that's just added. We have added magnet school. We had more students go to magnet schools, or
So no, this number is actually a lot higher than negative 65,000. However, we received the tuition, magnet school reimbursement tuition last year and this school year based on CREC increases. So
they
that
came in the middle of the year?
Yeah. Yeah, and we're actually, I don't want to say fighting, but I'm still going back and forth with the state because they gave us close to $310,000. We received the money October 2023, excuse me, so within 23-24 school year. And it was for 22-23 school year. Our audit was done. So now we're trying to get that money and use it this year, and the state keeps saying, no, it's supposed to be last year. Well, I'm not going to give back $310,000 when you didn't give it to me until 23-24 school year. So we're back and forth with the state, and even some of the people at the state level are saying that it should never have happened that way, and they're trying to fix it on their end. But that's a kind of separate.
Is it possible that we wouldn't get the money?
We received it because we are a Alliance district that has a increase in magnet school students because of our proximity to Hartford. So we're receiving it this school year. We're hoping to receive it next school year, but that's not required yet, or that hasn't passed any legislation yet. But this school year, we did receive it.
Oh, okay. So is this a real red, or you think by
That
the end?
number is, but
Yeah.
it should be negative 400,000.
Right.
Because that's really how much we pay for magnet school tuition. But we have less students in our magnet schools this school year than we have had in the past. But that is the difference of how much more magnet schools are charging us this school year and moving forward.
So we budgeted incorrectly.
I don't think I budgeted incorrectly at all.
well-
I mean, so so this number we increased last year in the budget. We added money to the budget. Next year, there's 200,000 added to the budget.
Sure.
And we don't know until the end of the school year what CREC's gonna charge the following school year.
Oh, okay, that's it, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions on the financial report? Mr. Wollaston?
Yeah, I guess this one is relating to the salary line items. I'm not sure if this can be answered on the spot, and if not, you could just like get it to us next meeting or whatever, or email us. But, so I remember when we went into the pair contract, we took away the equal pay clause. So how has that affected, our budget to date? I know there was a little bit of like an issue around the beginning of the school year to around, was it like now, the time that we would see like whatever the issue was prior? I just wanted to understand how it's looking now, whether it's.
Yeah, so I actually, I was just speaking with my payroll staff a week or two ago about this. They say it's working beautifully because it's not, the automated system of how a time clock system should operate is actually operating the way it should. They're not having to go in to 100 paras timesheets and alter them and edit them because they don't work the full time. So they're only getting paid for hours actually worked. And because of that, we have not overpaid paras. We're able to catch it before they leave or resign, what have you, before that pay already hits. There is nothing that you would actually see because it wasn't shown before because non-certified encompasses everybody. That's not a teacher.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing and hearing none, we can bring this to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900. Next item is approval of minutes, March 19th, 2024.
Move the Board of Education approve the minutes of March 19th, 2024 regular meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. Is there any discussion about those minutes? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900. Next is our student representative report.
Thank you.
Does she have a microphone?
Thank you. Thank you. So I would like to start off that as a member of the drama club, we were able to go on a Hamilton trip all the way to Broadway in New York. And it was like a spectacular time. It was really fun. And last year we went to Wicked, so it was a great opportunity to go. And then on the 5th, we had club pictures. It was a little rough because a lot of kids weren't able to, they didn't realize that there were club pictures because it wasn't like announced very well. So a lot of kids weren't in pictures. So that was kind of a problem, but it's okay. We can work on it next year, hopefully. And then on the 24th, which is next Wednesday, we have a Wellness Wednesday. So we'll have like fun activities for kids to do. So like there's a walk outside, pets, like a petting zoo, like rock painting and all that. And after that Wellness Wednesday, right after school, we'll have a spring carnival, and it's free, so anybody can just go and just have fun, you know, at the carnival. And then on the 17th, which is tomorrow, at 7 p.m., we have a night of jazz at the Windsor High School, which will feature Sage Park Middle School Jazz Ensemble. And the whole entire music department, from the 18th to the 21st, they'll be going to Virginia Beach for a spring music festival, which I'm jealous. I wish I could go, but I hope they have very much fun. And then on the 23rd, we have a volunteer awards at 6 p.m. at the Windsor High School. And then on the 25th, we have the Rho Kappa and National Honor Society inductions. And so the Rho Kappa will start at 6 p.m. in the auditorium, and then NHS will start right after that, so probably around 7 p.m. And then I just want to say, seniors, local scholarships are happening, so get that in. Also, the deadline extended to next Monday, so we're all good. And then lastly, sports. It's going to take a while. So what I found is that varsity girls tennis has a 2-win streak right now and 0 losses. And then we have the varsity boys baseball, who won against the University home and on the 5th, and Newington yesterday. So congratulations to them. We also have the varsity girls softball, who has a win streak of 4, and they have 0 losses, which that's awesome. Yeah. And then I would like to announce that there is a new school record on the track and field team by Lucas Pierce, I believe his last name is, who broke the Windsor High School 1,600 meter time with a new time at 4 minutes and 35 seconds. And then our varsity golf team was against Bristol Eastern at Goodwin Park Golf Course today. Unfortunately, they lost, but it's okay. They'll have more wins, hopefully. And then tomorrow, we have our varsity boys volleyball and JV, who are going to play against Weathersfield. It's going to be at the Weathersfield High School at 5 p.m., and JV will start at 4 p.m. And then we have the varsity boys lacrosse versus Norwich Tech, which will be at Norwich Tech High at 3:45 p.m. Our varsity softball versus Glastonbury at the Glastonbury High School at 3:45, and varsity baseball and Manchester at the Manchester High School at 3:45 p.m. So I guess you guys can only do one sport for that day. So choose wisely. And then on April 18th, we have our varsity boys lacrosse versus Bristol Eastern, and it's going to be a home game at 4 p.m. We also have JV baseball versus Manchester. It's going to be a home game at 3:45 p.m. And varsity boys and girls outdoor track versus Weathersfield will be an away game at 3:45 p.m. And varsity golf versus Maloney, which will be an away game at the Goodwin Golf Course at 3 p.m. So that's all for the sports. And lastly, I would just like to say that AP exams are coming up in the beginning of May, so that's going to be great. And I hope students who are in APs study hard and get passing grades. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lots of things going on at Windsor High School. Any questions or comments for our Windsor High School representative? Mr. Willison.
Yes, I'll just say amazing report. Love the energy. Keep it up.
Oh, thank you so much.
I agree. And again, if you'd like to stay, you're welcome to stay. And but we know with your schedule, especially if you're going to be studying for AP tests the first week of May, and that's the interesting thing that many schools, especially in the South, start in an early August for school, so they have a leg up for those. And I know most of the teachers at Windsor High School are very good about making sure that students are ready and providing extra time for students. So again, thanks again for your report.
Thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda is the president's report. I'll just realize some of the things that our student said so I can start crossing off some items that I was going to talk about. First and foremost, it was great to have our WEA co-presidents here tonight to accept the proclamation for Teachers Appreciation Week. However, it's important that we recognize our wonderful staff, teachers and staff throughout the district all the time, for all the hard work that they do. I hope most staff and families had a good break last week, and they're back at it again, obviously, this week. I will be at JFK with a couple of Windsor High School students from Team Paragon Robotics for a robotic demonstration on Friday for their Fun Friday. Dr. Hill, Ms. Batchelder, Mr. Lockhart, and myself presented the board's budget on April 3rd to the town council. Mr. Eleveld at that point, Councilor Eleveld, asked what would a $1 million, $2 million, and $3 million cut look like? And Dr. Hill provided numbers regarding a 1%, 2%, and 3% cut, and also provided the board to let us know what his thoughts were at this time. Obviously, he had presented that a couple months ago to us when asked that question, what would a 1% cut look like? Town council will be voting on the board budget as part of the overall budget on either April 23rd or April 24th. It was a beautiful day out yesterday, and I was able to attend part of the boys varsity game at the Barry Chasen Field. And again, for people on the board or folks in the community, it's great. We now have a whole list of things coming up, but you can also go online to the Board of Education, to the Windsor Public Schools website and hit the sports department, and you'll see items that are coming up. And we have a lot of sports and a lot of athletes here. A few items have been mentioned already, items that are coming up, and so I won't belabor those. And Teacher Appreciation Breakfast begins April 30th, and I'm hoping board members can try to attend at least one one or two of those. I know Mr. Lockhart usually tries to hit them all. I do too, but this year I won't be able to. That's my report. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing and hearing none, we'll go to the school liaison report, starting with Windsor High School and Ms. Taylor.
Thank you, President Fury. A lot of what I was going to say was addressed by our wonderful student representative and our president, but there's some that you missed. The band concert was mentioned. That's coming up tomorrow. But the orchestra string concert is May 2nd. And the choral spring concert is May 9th. And I bring that up because that'll happen between now and our next meeting. I am a chaperone on the trip that she mentioned. Send thoughts and prayers that we get there safe and we bring back all those wonderful awards that our amazing musicians and choirs do every single time, year after year. But we haven't been back down to Virginia since before COVID, so this is an exciting time. And it's a long bus ride with 3 different buses. So that'll be exciting. And what's the last thing I wanted to lift? Oh, shouting out that junior prom is May 11th. That's exciting. And last but not least, even though she mentioned it, National Honor Society, congratulations to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
But especially Chloe Taylor.
Please strike that note.
I have nothing to report.
Okay. Any questions for Windsor High School? Ms. Cantor.
Would you be able to tell me where the prom is? Do you know?
Yes, I do. La Note in
Oh,
East
yes.
Windsor. Yeah, have you
It's got
been?
great food.
They
Yes.
do.
Yes.
But we can't go.
I know.
We can't go.
Hoping we could crash at the whole board. Wouldn't that be funny?
I'll check to see if they need any more chaperones, Miss Kansas.
They said no.
Well, my daughter told me no.
Sure, if my son was there, he'd say, "Don't show up." Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Sage Park, Mr. Panos?
Sure. They had the March to Fitness, they call it, was, they claim it was a success. The whole building worked together to support the students to pass the Connecticut fitness test. So hopefully we're going to do well. They had the Washington, D.C. trip. It was quite a success. All the students apparently are accounted for. So,
As long as there's a majority.
yeah, so might have lost a few. They're going to have a NASA Career Day. They're going to have a talk back and forth. Students will be able to engage the scientists about their careers in NASA. So, and there's going to be a career day for the 8th grade students on April 26th. And our students will be exposed to a variety of people and careers and be able to ask questions. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. King?
Nothing too much to add, just that there is a PTO meeting tomorrow. So for those folks that are interested, it'd be great to have more folks come out and support that.
May I, did he say there was going to be one?
Yes.
No. I was just told before the meeting that it was canceled because some other event is taking place at the location, because this is quite an interesting location to have a PTO meeting. It's at the tavern.
Which actually,
I was going to be there anyway, right?
I might get a little more.
I think it's important for all board members to be there and
All
participate.
board members should be at those PTO meetings, but unfortunately, no, there was some.
I did not realize they canceled that. So
Right, I was
going to leave the tavern part off just because I'm there, but I figured, you know.
Was it your idea?
No, I wish. They didn't ask me, but I didn't really finish it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Panos. Any questions for Sage Park? Clover Street? Mr. Madison?
Yeah, a whole bunch of things going on. So the $20,000 was raised through the Booster-thon run, along with Aquatic School, so it was a joint exercise, which is a huge amount of money, and my son wedged some of that out of my wallet, which is good. And then the staff and PTO hosted a luncheon for the paraprofessionals on Paraprofessional Appreciation Day. March attendance was excellent. Mrs. Comer's class won the March Madness attendance event with 98.5% attendance for the last week of March. Mrs. Nausch's class came in at 96.9. Excellent. And the overall for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade was 94, 93, and 93, respectively. Sage Park Administration presented to the PTO and 5th grade families for what Sage Park will be like. I went to that as well because I have one moving to Sage Park next year, so that'll be good. The PTO also organized a family fun night at a Wolfpack game on March 30th, and the Kiwanis Kids Club was highlighted on the Community Renewal Team Facebook page for their donation of care packages for the homeless. And the Girls on the Run After School Club has been running every Monday and Wednesday since February 26th, and they will have their last 5K on Saturday, May 11th at the Cigna in Bloomfield. And the Scholastic Book Fair at the end of April is going on to continue to fill the book vending machine. Coming up is April 26th, 2 o'clock Friday, student-led Student of the Month Assembly, which is always a blast. And then May 13th from 5 to 6:30 is the STEM Carnival. My son will be there with straw rockets, which they discovered when we went to Red Robin, and much to my wife's chagrin, the 3 males made rockets out of straws. You twist the end and you put fins on it, you go, yeah, and one went over the wall, and at which point my wife took over and said, no. So he will now be doing that as a science experiment, and it'll be cool. So.
Any questions for Clover? Okay.
Actually,
John?
one last point I gotta say too. Thank you, Mrs. Lee. She wrote all that up. I don't want to take credit for other people's work. She made me sound studious. It wasn't
AI?
I was the reader. Thank you, Mrs. Lee. I appreciate it.
Well, is that even the stuff about the straw going over there? Oh.
I added that one.
At least he had one part of that. Ms. Cantor, John F. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. The running club is still occurring in the morning. Excuse me. My allergies are really bad from the pollen. I'm sorry. Thursday, April 25th, Mr. Principal Gagne is going to have his coffee talk from 9 to 10. And also on that date, they're doing the science showcase for grade 3 at 9:15 to 10:15. And then they're doing one from 2 to 3 p.m. I believe the one in the afternoon is STEM and the other one's humanities. On Friday, April 26th from 2:30 p.m. to 3:15 p.m. is Student of the Month. Monday, April 29th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. is Financial Literacy Workshop at LPW. The next PTO meeting is Monday, May 6th from 6 p.m. to 7. Tuesday, May 7th is an early dismissal. Monday, May 13th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. is JFK Art Show. And I want to say Happy Teachers Week and appreciation of them for all the hard work that they do and take really good care of the kids and teach to them and to their parents. Happy Nurses Week, that's coming up really soon, and the Shad Derby is May 18th. And the Coronation Ball, I think, is May 4th. Thank you. Thank you.
Questions for Kennedy School? Oliver Ellsworth, Mr. Lockhart.
Yes, sir. I have no report, but I am on this HVAC project with like a pit bull on a bone. So it's moving along. Been attending the PBC meetings, making sure everything is going according to plan. Parents are looking to hold us accountable to make sure that that project comes off without a hitch. And the PBC meetings are quite interesting. They definitely tell the true tale of what's going on in town is with our buildings. And it's quite interesting. So they've been very responsive to myself and Mr. Panos in regards to our questions of what's going on with projects throughout the school district. So I'm truly happy with the progress that we're making with that building, and we're still holding steadfast that when we open that school up for teachers to come back for their week of professional development before school opens, that building will be in pristine condition from a HVAC perspective. So everything is going to plan.
Thank you. Any questions for Oliver Ellsworth? Aquatic School, Mr. Halleck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Aquatic School held their annual Easter egg hunt on Friday, March 29th. It was a huge success. Our students hunted around the playground for Easter eggs and had their pictures taken with the Easter Bunny. It was a great event all around. Everyone had a wonderful time.
There was a vicious rumor about the Easter Bunny.
Well, I thought, Mr. Halleck, you were going to attend that event, and nobody saw you
No one
that
saw
day.
you. How could you miss that event, sir?
Yeah, we didn't see it. We saw the Easter Bunny, but we didn't see it.
I did meet with the Easter Bunny. We had a great conversation.
How tall was he? compared to you?
Is it true he wrote that report?
Boy. Yes, he did. But anyway, that was a great event. I attended the Pequannock Around the World Multicultural Festival. Parents and students got to choose a place or a culture to share and make poster boards, pictures, artifacts, clothing, games, and food as well. Some of the food was really delicious. You know, snacks, cookies, different things like that. It was really nice. And I learned a few things that I didn't know as well. So it definitely was a great event. I attended the Pequannock PTO meeting on April the 1st. The next PTO meeting will be on Monday, May 6th, from 6 to 7 p.m. May 7th is a teacher professional development day. Us students will have early dismissal. There is a Pequannock strings assembly coming up on May 13th from 6 to 6:45 p.m. And finally, the PTO is presenting a Mommy and Me paint night on Friday, May 3rd. That's going to be from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in the Pequannock Gymnasium. The cost for that event is $15 per pair, and in addition, a child will be an extra $6 as well. All supplies and instructions will be included with that event. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Pequannock? Okay, thank you, Easter. I can't say that. Thank you, Mr. Howard. Next item, I think we're going to look for 7C, last day of school, a motion. Okay, hold on. Maybe having a little technical difficulty, so we're going to pause for a minute.
He's looking into it. Lord, give me a sign. Have we lost? Mr. President, have we lost the ability to transmit?
I don't know the answer to that.
It's Win TV.
It's Win,
It's
okay.
Win TV.
Okay.
Okay.
What's the consensus? Do we want to pause this because of that? Do you want to take a 5-minute recess? What's the thought of the board members?
Sure, I think that people might be interested in the
And is there a
next item.
A recess for 5 minutes?
consensus?
How much you need? 5 or 10? I'm sorry, Mr. President, I'm sorry.
No. Is there a motion?
No.
Oh.
No, she said.
You can just call it.
There's no Zoom. So, Mr. President, are you open for, probably not a motion, but just a recess for up to 10
Yes, I
minutes?
think consensus.
Yeah, you
Yeah. It's now 8 o'clock. We're going to be in recess till 8:10 to try to fix some technical difficulties. So we're in recess at 8.
She said she believes it's mics. Quick question for you. Was your mic on?
Yes, it was.
It was on? Okay.
is, how you doing? How old is he now?
Math makes money, baby. Going to my guy Madison. Let's get.
I'll warn you, it's take some work on your. So. Ash-
But yeah, I have one.
I had to learn it. I'm learning to teach. So I'll give you some crash course. There's like what is it? Academy. Free. Yeah. So I can give you the topics. Josh is great. Yeah. Hey guys.
By 2030.
No. All it does is look up.
Really?
No, stop.
So just that whole idea.
No, and I joke every time the machine doesn't. I think it will work.
On him. All right.
Yeah.
But it's that for me, man. Is my favorite. I really feel like you need to go home.
That's it.
That scares me.
Alright. Oh, that's just too nice. Like this weird in here. Yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
guys are ready to work, you know.
I was excited. No, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. All right, I'm glad we got on the calendar, friends.
8:11, we're back in session. Sorry for the technical difficulties we have. Just a reminder, too, to our folks, Dr. Hill, and the board members, to make sure you speak loudly and enunciate and have the microphone near us, and I think also, and the main microphone, the green, near the green light is. So I guess you have to, don't look down at your notes. Speak up or speak to the top of your microphone. The next item on the agenda, I think, was a motion.
Thank you. I move the Board of Education approve a change to their approved 2023-2024 calendar, setting Friday, June 7th, 2024, as the last day of school for students in grades pre-K to grade 11, and the last day for teachers would be Monday, June 10th, 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Panos. Dr. Hill, do you want to give a little quick explanation?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. President. So each year, the Board of Education communicates the last day of school. Per the board-approved calendar, Monday, June 10th, 2024, will be the 181st Student Day and the 187th Teacher Day of Windsor's school year. State Department of Education requires all Connecticut public schools to hold 180 student days. Thus, there is one day for which the board has discretion and can implement local control. It is proposed that the last day of school for pre-K through grade 11 be scheduled for Friday, June 7, 2024, which would be 180th Student Day, with an early release for students. Certified staff would return on Monday, June 10th, 2024, which would be their contracted 187th day for Professional Development Day.
Any questions for Dr. Hill? Seeing and hearing none, let's bring this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion carries 900. Next item on the agenda is healthy food certification. And there's going to be a couple different motions, and hopefully Ms. Batchelder then can speak to this. Yeah.
It's a long one. The Windsor Board of Education pursuant to the Connecticut General Statute, Section 10-215F, certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut nutritional standards published by the State of Connecticut Department of Education during the period of July 1, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. This certificate shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from the reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, second. Great, I just didn't have the microphone on. I've just told people to speak loudly and have your microphones on. One demerit. Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Panos. And Ms. Batchelder, you could give us a little explanation of this, more for probably the viewing public than us, since this is a regular event.
Yep, absolutely. So this is an every year requirement because we are a healthy food certified district. So state law requires that each local board of ed that for schools that are participating in the National School Lunch Program, that each year you have to certify the motion that you just read to make sure that any food items that are sold to students separately from our reimbursable meals will meet the Connecticut nutritional standards, which we do and we have been following for at least my tenure here.
Any question for Ms. Batchelder?
I do have one
Ms.
question.
Cantor?
Thank you. I do have one question. Can you tell me about this parfait that the kids order? Is that an ice cream or yogurt? Do you have any idea? I just wondered.
So the parfait, the yogurt, and then the granola, is that what you're?
I don't know what it is. I hear about as a parfait.
It's vanilla yogurt,
It
with
is
granola
very good.
and fruit.
That's my
That's what I
favorite.
hear. Okay, I just wondered.
They at the teacher
Yeah.
appreciation breakfasts, you will get them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Lockhart.
That is like the 8th time someone
You
gave me
know,
that today.
He avails himself of every meal.
This is true, I earned them.
Okay, let's bring this to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900. Ms. Taylor?
Motion 2, the Windsor Board of Education will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutritional standards and beverages not listed in Section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event, in quotes, is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day, in quotes, is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location, in quotes, means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the food and beverage sales.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Taylor, seconded by Mr. Panos. Ms. Batchel, did you have anything to add to this? Any questions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention, motion carries 900. Next item is Superintendent's Report. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, at the risk of repeating everything that's been said a few times, I'll try to skip around some of these things. But spring break is now behind us, so if anyone was counting, we have 37 days left in the 2023-2024 school year. I know nobody's counting. Spring sports season in full swing, as you heard from our student rep. Please avail yourself of, 1 or 2 games. The teams love seeing us there, so if you could make it to a game or a match, that would be nice. Teacher Appreciation Breakfast will be the first 2 weeks of May, so we'll be getting that formalized schedule very soon. The Office of Family and Community Partnerships will host the annual Volunteer Appreciation Celebration on Tuesday, April 23rd, from 6 to 7:30 p.m. in the high school library. And this is an invitation-only event. On Tuesday, May 7th, Peter Souza, Town Manager, and I will be holding a community forum on the town budget at the L.P. Wilson Senior Center from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. That evening, we will host a second community forum at Matianuck School from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. In addition, there is a third opportunity for community members to attend a community forum on Wednesday, May 8th at 330 Windsor Avenue from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. My next coffee talk is scheduled for Tuesday, April 30th at 5:30 p.m. here in the L.P. Wilson Boardroom. You may RSVP on the district website. Also, congratulations to Mr. Nate Wollaston on his upcoming nuptials. So excited for this young man.
Thank you.
Wish you nothing but blessings. And a very, very special announcement. One of our own from Windsor High School, young Mr. Alex Inyakin, will be performing in the Garden Dreams Talent Show, which will be held on May 2nd at Radio City Music Hall. He will be singing Still I Rise by one of my favorite gospel artists, Yolanda Adams. So we are very proud of Alex Inyakin, who will be performing again at Radio City Music Hall in the Garden Dreams Talent Show. I was aware from his mom that he had been trying out over the last couple of months. So this is really a big deal, and we are really proud that another one of our Windsor students is about to do something amazing. And that's my report. Are there any questions?
Questions for Dr. Hill? Mr. Ms. Taylor?
Yes. Just shouting out Alex. He's amazing. He's also in the choir here at Windsor High School, and he's going on the trip. So go, Alex. Awesome job. He's a special kid. Love him.
Anyone else? Thank you. Next item is, I guess they're under you, still under you, but originally was going to be Dr. Haiti.
So,
Yes, we have Bonnie.
yes, we're going to call Ms. Bonnie Feynman up to, in Ms. Dr. Haiti's stead. So,
Hello.
Feynman?
Can you just repeat what you said about the microphone? Just speak loudly, is that right? Okay. Okay, thank you for having me. I'm happy to present on behalf of Dr. Haiti and our Instructional Services Department on two items, beginning with the right to read legislation. So my goal is to give the board and the public an update, and of course I'll answer any questions. I did come prepared with notes because I was curious about the computer situation. So if you see me looking down, I'm reading some notes. I want to preface the update on the right to read legislation with just providing some definitions of some of the terms that might come up as we're talking about the legislation and our the Windsor waiver that we put in for, and I'll explain that in a little bit. The first thing I wanted to explain just for you and for the audience is you may hear me talk about different components of reading instruction, one of which is phonics. And phonics is the correspondence between sounds and letters. So if you're wondering what element of reading instruction that covers, that's what phonics is. And then PA is another element that we talk about in reading instruction, and that actually covers sort of the parts, the structures within words. So like students being able to understand how words are sort of put together and taken apart. These are elemental parts of learning to read. And then you may hear me talk about comprehension. That's what probably most of you have heard about the most when it comes to reading instruction. Comprehension is the meaning-making part of reading. So students, it is possible for people to read and not be able to understand what they're reading, which would mean that they are lacking comprehension. So these are different components. The right to read legislation actually addresses these three components and a couple more, but I thought those are ones that were worth defining before we get into the overview of the legislation. So as you may or may not know, I'm sure the board knows, the public might not know, in 2021, the state legislature passed the right to read law. Basically what it does is it gives the state jurisdiction over the Center for Literacy Research, which is a component of the State Department of Education. And under that umbrella is jurisdiction over early literacy curriculum and assessment across Connecticut's public schools, meaning that the state has put forth sort of mandated rules and regulations regarding how we teach reading in the early grades, so K to 3, and how we assess reading in those early grades. So there's two parts to the law, which is assessment and then the curriculum and instruction side of it. We in the district have already addressed the assessment portion of the law. That was the first phase that the state put forward, and it was the first phase that we already have completed, and that is when we adopted the Dibbles assessment for early literacy, which we had not used before, and we did inform the board of that. So that is an assessment that was there were a small handful of assessments that we could select from. So districts have to select one of the assessment tools, and we did. Our iReady assessment that we were previously using was not on the list for early literacy because it really doesn't, early literacy skills are embedded in iReady, but it's not an early literacy test. Dibbles is more appropriate for that. So we already, using grant money, we had already adopted Dibbles. We've been using it, been sharing that information with families and using it to inform our instruction. The part where we are right now as a district is sort of managing and dealing with the curricular aspects of the legislation, okay? The state allowed districts to put in waivers last year. So actually, when I was in my previous role that covered literacy at the elementary level, I wrote the waiver on behalf of the district, obviously under Dr. Hill's guidance and his approval. And that waiver went to the state. Basically, what I had to do was provide a very detailed overview of how we teach literacy skills in the district. It was, I think our waiver was about 70 pages long. And it went through systematically how we instruct on literacy. It provided examples of our curriculum. It provided examples of our scope and sequence of our foundational skills program that we currently use, which is Open Court Foundational Skills. And we waited. So most districts in the state put waivers in. Essentially, the waiver, if granted, allows us to just continue on with what we're doing. When waivers are not granted, and I'll explain that in a minute, districts, according to the law, are supposed to be adopting new programs that cover the components that I've already mentioned. So phonics, PA, comprehension, fluency, and also vocabulary. Okay, so just that's the background of it. I've submitted the waiver last year. We waited almost 10 months or so to get our results. Our results were what they are calling a transitional waiver. So what a transitional waiver means is that they deemed some parts of our reading program acceptable according to the rubric and their standards, and other parts they are saying we need to replace. Okay, the state offered several different levels of waiver, I guess you'd call it. So a small number of districts, so 17 districts were granted a full waiver, which means they could just continue on with everything they were doing. I want to just as a sort of a piece of information, districts' performance in literacy did not, even the state said that this would be part of the way they would measure us, but it doesn't appear as if that was a major part, and I say that only because of the 17 districts that received a waiver, these included districts like Hartford, Waterbury, New London, and East Hartford, and some others, but these are districts that unfortunately have been seriously underperforming in reading, but a lot of these districts pre-adopted the programs that were on the state's list, and therefore they were granted the waivers. 39 of us were transitional, meaning again that we had parts of our reading program deemed, I'll just say, acceptable, and other parts that they are asking us to replace by law. Just in case you wanted this for reference, other districts that are within our 39 transitional, this group of those of us who got transitional waivers include South Windsor, Simsbury, Old Saybrook, and New Canaan, among others. Okay, so again, we're just want to keep in mind as we move forward with our next steps that the performance of the districts wasn't necessarily the reason why a district would get a waiver or not. There were 26 districts that got nothing waived. They're being told they have to replace their entire reading program. And just, again, for reference, that includes districts like Glastonbury, Westport, Madison, and Wilton, among others. Okay, so we came in at the transitional level. What they told us was that our phonics and PA program, which we use Open Court Foundational Skills, that our student data, in-house student data, was very good, which it is in those grades, and that our comprehension and vocabulary pieces of our reading program or literacy program were not systematic enough and need to be replaced with a programmatic option that's on a list that they have provided the districts. Okay. We did appeal, as did other districts. We sent an appeal letter and basically saying that we received the rubric from you. It was unclear as to what parts of our program were not systematic enough to meet the waiver, acceptance of the waiver, and asked for more clarity, among other things. And the response to us and other districts was, you need to move forward with replacing the parts that we said you need to replace. Okay, so that's where we are with the waiver. Our next steps that we're anticipating, and this is with Dr. Haiti, sort of leading the charge, and then Michelle Williams, who's our elementary curriculum director, also spearheading, is we looked at what the programs were that addressed only the areas that they told us need to be replaced: vocabulary and comprehension instruction. And they do give a list, what they call compendiums, so blending programs. Some of them are phonics-based, we don't need that, and some are comprehension and vocab-based, which they're saying we need. And we looked at the options available within the compendium list that would meet our needs according to our waiver. And due to reading reviews, speaking to other districts, going on site visits to other districts, getting insight from PhD level people that know a lot about reading, we are moving forward with a pilot of one of those programs, which is called Bookworms. I will let you know that for the public and for all of you, you can go online and actually look at exactly what Bookworms is. It is a program that actually was designed out of Harvard, and originally designed to be open sourced, meaning like any district could, or any teacher, anyone could just get it for free. They don't do that anymore in the sense that there are components to it like workbooks and teacher materials that that are really required in order to implement the program with fidelity, and that's what you pay for. You're paying for the materials. Dr. Haiti, Michelle and I, and Dr. Hill, everybody, we've had extensive discussions about this, and the decision was made to move forward with a pilot of Bookworms, one of the many options. The pilot will cost $70,000. We will be keeping open court foundational skills kits because we know that they work, and because we have a waiver saying that they worked. And we do not believe that there is a reason to replace that. I will be frank with the board in saying that open court foundational skills kits are not on the list in the compendium. However, the law states that if we have components that are working, that the state has said are working, under law, we really technically do not need to replace them. And so, so there's some kind of strange things happening, we'll just say that. After the pilot, which we're doing in limited number of classrooms next year across buildings to kind of see how it works, would be to, if the district moves forward, we would be looking to adopt the Bookworms program for comprehension and vocabulary. And the cost for K through 3, which is those are the required grades under the legislation, is $160,000. Just as a kind of a comparison, we have looked into other options. One of the programs that we had priced out for us, which is the same one that New Britain is using, we actually went on site to see it. We received a quote for $1.7 million to run that program in the district. So we really looked at the legislation, right? But we also looked at cost. And we also looked at or consulted with experts. I'm not talking about the committee for the state, and I'm not trying to disparage them. I'm saying we went to our own people that we know are very decorated in the field of reading and asked for their insight. I asked one, if you were to pick one of these programs and you had to use it for comprehension and vocabulary, what would you pick? And the person said Bookworms, which was already the direction we were sort of moving in. So I'll stop there. I'm trying to give you the most complete overview of the waiver process, the legislation, and where we are, and I'm definitely available to field questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Mr. Lockhart first, then Mr. Panos.
Regrettably, I am intimately in the know about what's going on with this right to read. I believe everyone in the state agrees with the foundation that we want everyone to read correctly and properly. It is the implementation of it. It started with 7 programs that were initially placed on the list. It grew to 19. You mentioned several towns. One is Madison. Madison had their K-3 reading at a 75 or 74 percentile, and they were flat out rejected and told to scrap their program and to go in a different direction. That's disgusting. Implementation and allowing districts to homegrown their curriculum and to make sure that we're teaching our kids properly is just something that should be done by the district and not thumbed upon by the state. This has definitely been something that's been discussed with the CGA in very candid, frank meetings, especially in my role as K president. We've had candid conversations with the Honorable Representative Jeff Curry, who is co-chair of the Education Committee. He has spoken to the K Board directors and spoke very candid about this situation and felt that this situation could be resolved without any legislative action. We have a case of the state legislature passing a law, the governor signing it, and then it's being enforced a certain way by the State Department of Education. Their position being SDE is that, hey, this is the way that we are enforcing it. That's what's creating the angst across the state, where you have certain districts that proceed with very poor performance, but they're getting waivers only because they got the program that's on the list. That's in my term, ridiculous. I speak for me, not the board or CABE. Me, that's ridiculous. We have to do better. Honorable Representative Curry said, yes, this is definitely an implementation issue, and that hopefully during the legislative process that's going on right now at the CGA, that this will be addressed coming out. The amount of money that's being spent on these programs is, or being pushed by these programs is disappointing. I'm definitely hearing about the lack of support for these programs. I'll say it proudly publicly. These are programs that none of them are coming from the state of Connecticut. They're being pumped by outstate entities with very poor support, if any. We need to celebrate those districts that are striving to do well and create curriculum within their district. We need to support districts that have very limited funds and doing the best they can, and to have this unfunded mandate placed upon them. It's just unfortunate, to say the least. Windsor, I believe we're in a very good place. We create our curriculum from the bottom up. It starts with the curriculum director, and work with every teacher at every level, depending on the level of the curriculum that's being derived. And we've done a good job. Do we want our scores to be better? Absolutely. I would love for our reading, our math, all of our scores to be better. I think all of us in this room would like that. So that just speaks to another issue. Is it funding? Is it, what do we need to do? But this reading process is something that was derived from Mississippi, and it has caught fire across the country. At the time, Mississippi was one of the worst states in the union in regards to education, and they went up so many different percentage points that it caught fire, and everyone else just gravitated to it. At the end of the day, it has not, the waiver process, in my opinion, has not been implemented in a fair and equitable way. For Windsor to be transitional is disappointing, but even more disappointing, towns like Madison and other towns that are very affluent, that have a lot of resources and had great scores in comparison to what the state was looking for. And the kicker was, nope, you're not using my program, and you still got 26% of your kids that are not reading properly. That has been the response. Statistically, are we going to get every child to be at 100% of reading? That's a nice goal to attain, but I don't think we're there, and I don't think we'll ever get there. There's always going to be a bell curve in everything that you do. But at the end of the day, this is a very expensive venture for Windsor. It's a slap in the face to our superintendent and all of our educators that try to do the right thing with the process. And now we're going to have to uproot everything that we've built and then start with new programs. And that costs money with professional development, buying these new programs and implementing something and starting new. And then we got to deploy it and then look at the results and then have to probably retool, do some retraining, and then redeploy again. That's take time, money, and effort away from what we've already homegrown. So this is very disappointing, Mr. President. I know you are aware that I've been very vocal about this across the state on this particular matter. Honorable Representative Jeff Curry has earned my respect as one of the co-chairs of the Education Committee to handle this behind the scenes through the legislative process, and he is working through that process. For Windsor to be in this situation with all the financial woes that we have as our town and all the other towns have in the state in Connecticut, this is quite disappointing. This is not an attack on anybody other than we all want everyone to read. We all believe in the principle of right to read. It is the implementation and the waiver process. That is the sticking point. And it's been a burden on the town of Windsor. And this board member, through you, Mr. President, and through you, Dr. Hills, our superintendent, we need to fight and work through our state legislators, both in the Senate and the House of Representatives, as well as putting pressure on the SDE, let them know that this is something that Windsor's not happy with, and we just got to keep doing what we need to do. I know that was a long rant, but I just wanted to give you a perspective of what's going on. Every school district in the state of Connecticut is going through this, especially with some of the school districts, respectfully, that were given full grants and test scores are not well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Panos?
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned very high numbers for some of these, like you said it would just be 70K for bookworm, but you mentioned something about the New Britain program or something, $1.7 million.
That was the quote that we received from the company.
Yes.
That's just a program for reading that would cost that much money?
Yes.
What would be the, I mean, you could buy tons of materials for that. Is it in the software or some patented or copyrighted materials?
Yeah, it depends on the program. So the $1.7 million program had a digital component, but the cost of that included the training for teachers, which was $30,000 to train them to use the program. It included the technology, the digital dashboard for the program, the books that go with the program, the teacher manuals. So it included those different components. Bookworms is not digitized, which was one of the reasons that we liked it, because we don't want our kids reading on computers all day. The cost that for Bookworms mainly is for the student workbooks. So there are student workbooks that go with each unit. Teacher manuals that the teachers have that take them through the curriculum, as well as the books. So they do have recommended texts that go with the program. So they're not reading off of a computer, they're reading books. So the books are included, and the professional development in that. So the cost that I'm sharing with you is for all of that. There are districts that say, well, we want the manuals, but we don't want the workbooks, or we want the manuals and the student books, but not. So you can if you want to get only certain parts, but the problem is that if you don't buy the books through them, we'd end up paying more just buying the books from our other vendors, and you get them all in a bundle. And if you were to copy the materials for every single child, every single teacher, eventually the cost of that and the problem with the machines, it would be almost impossible. Districts that we've met with tried that to make their own copies. They said it was absolutely unmanageable. and that it was actually cheaper for them to have the company do it and purchase it. So for bookworms, again, one of the selling points for us, seeing as this was a mandated situation, was that it's not on a computer. The majority of the programs that Mr. Lockhart mentioned, of the 7 initial programs that the state put on the list, all of them, with the exception of one, were digitized, which means that children are going to be reading on computers all day. And that didn't really sound that great. I mean, I love technology and I love computers, but I mean, you know, I'm a literature person. Let's get books in kids' hands, right? It also puts a burden on our tech folks to have to support that. It's an enormous undertaking to support that. So I hope that answers your question. The cost that I gave you would not be, we would end up not paying quite as much in subsequent years, because we would not need to replace teachers' manuals, hopefully, unless they get lost or damaged, but teachers would keep their manuals, or new teachers would get manuals from somebody else.
Well, just interject a quick, this is just K through 3?
Correct.
Yes.
We don't have that many teachers, do we? At K through 3. To amount to.
Well, what they're trying to, Mr. President, what they're trying to attack is, if you don't solve a lot of the issues by the 3rd grade for any discipline, you lose them for the rest of their academic career. So what they're trying to do is to focus at the primary point of where you got them engaged, where they're a sponge, and they're really, really focusing hard on this big time.
We also have 850, so we had to price this for approximately 850 students. So when we look at K to 3, we have approximately 850 children in those grades, and most of the programs have student materials. So the cost of this includes the materials that go to the students.
Our current program, though, doesn't cost anywhere near that, does it?
No, so our phonics, our open court foundational skills kits that I mentioned that covers phonics and PA for us, we did, I don't know if those of you who are on the board, you would remember, Mr. Panos, we did an onboarding of that program about 6 or 7 years ago that was quite expensive, but once we got the program here, the costs for the buildings, I would say, I mean, Mrs. Lee could probably mention what her building is, but from what I recall from Pequannock and OE respectively, you're looking at about $10,000 to maybe $15,000 a year for the consumables, to replenish the consumables for those programs. So we didn't have to, we're not, you know, the enormous costs that we had to onboard the program, which those programs don't change. So like the way that we teach phonics and PA, it's not, this has been years of this, the program's been around and has been working for 25 to 30 years. Those things don't change. It's the consumables. So there are workbooks, decodable books that go home to the children, desk strips that show them the letters, things like that. But yeah, the cost for that is roughly 10 to 15, depending on the building and how many children are in the building. Our other components were the homegrown ones that we've brought before the board before, the costs of which are associated with developing those, so paying our teachers and coaches to develop those, and buying the books that come along with those. You need books for those, for our own program.
Okay. So, yeah, I had a question also about, has any district tried these systems specifically? And you say Hartford is one of them?
Not bookworms, so I don't know what Hartford.
No, the ones that, of the 7 that are on.
Yes, some of the districts adopted those programs preemptively. The legislation came out, the state put a little bit of a pause on it. They put the assessment piece out first, so that's why we adopted the DIBELS first, our assessment tool, and they kind of put a pause on the waiver system and putting in your waiver. So, but some districts said, you know what, we're just going to adopt a program. There are districts that just went ahead and adopted those original 7 on that list and went ahead and adopted them preemptively to just kind of avoid, you know, they had money through grants and things and did it.
However, none of them had this, let's say, 5 years ago. Let's say, or 6 or something. So, you know, you need a few years in order to be able to evaluate.
Almost none of them. So, and I asked that question when the legislation first came out, I attended, because I was working in elementary at that point, I attended some workshops and symposiums on this. I asked that very question, which was, can I please see the data from the districts that are using these programs so we can make an informed decision about which ones are working? The state members of the representatives from the state told me we don't have any data on the program. So
In Connecticut, you mean?
well, really, I mean,
Or New England, let's say.
I would safely say there's a lack of definitive data in the research, whether you look at Ed Reports, which is one major go-to place to look for it, and What Works Clearinghouse. These are organizations that do private studies of curriculum and instruction programs. There's very little about these programs. Many of them, there's nothing about them. Ed Reports, some of them are in there. And so as far as Connecticut is concerned, we were not provided with any data that can give us definitive information about whether the programs have worked in any of the districts that adopted them.
So this was just adopted by the Department of Education. They came in and told the legislators to do this, and they voted for it, and...
I don't know if Mr. Lockhart or Dr. Hill could maybe give the timeline. I'm not entirely sure how it all went down.
So the legislators came up with the law first, the right to read. And
where did they
let me just
get it?
finish. It's another one of those rare times we're in the same place, but let me finish. The legislators came up with this first. And I want to be clear, no one is trying to fight against children learning to read. That is not what anyone's trying to do.
Trying to fight against what?
Fight against children trying to read.
Concept of the right to read.
Right, it's the right, so so the law came first. Then the State Department of Education came up with how they interpreted the law and said how they're going to address it. And as Ms. Feynman has said, they came up with this idea of using these, 5 or 6 programs?
Originally 6, and they added a 7th,
Right.
and then we all got our waivers back, and after we got our waivers back, they had added 19 or so other compendium enmeshing various programs together.
It was a cart before the horse situation, for sure. Now I'm back on my voice. I've been vocal about this across the state for over 2 years. Saw the problem coming. So I want you to do this, and they just didn't figure out a good way to do it. And now it's a lot of, sideways shuffling. And because the reality is, the fact that you're forced to use these programs that they picked, in business in general, right, you've taken away any kind of competition in the market, right? Because here are the companies that offer this. And we learned some of those companies have had these materials sitting in warehouses for over a decade plus because people weren't buying them. So imagine the thing you couldn't sell before, now all of a sudden, your stuff is mandatory. So they know they're going to sell something to someone. And so what's the incentive for a company to, be price competitive? They don't have to. There's no competition. So that's why all this stuff costs so much money, because they can do it.
Are you done, Mr. Kennis?
I
You can come
think
back
so.
in.
I just want, the follow-up would be, what, I guess CABE is somewhat represented here on this board, so maybe, and so we do have some. And, and we do have a few legislators, and probably we should find out, as a board, whatever happened here, how in the world did this get passed? And,
Well, it got passed, but it's the implementation.
Mike.
Mr. President, it got passed. It's the implementation. As Dr. Hill just said, I said, no one's questioning the premise of right to read. It's the implementation.
The State Department was empowered to come up with rules,
Yes.
and they're a runaway train, it appears to be.
well, the origin of the problem is in the legislature somehow. So the question is, where did they get this? And why are they?
It was pushed by Senator Miller from Stanford, and it came from Mississippi.
All right.
Yeah, there are
I think
a
I said
number of
that
other
twice.
states.
Okay,
Yeah.
and everybody else just said, oh, yeah, let's all do this.
Ms. Taylor?
Yeah, because the premise of wanting children to read and knowing the statistical proof that if a child isn't reading on grade level by grade 3, there's so many reasons why. So you can see why educators and lawmakers want to push this. The problem was they did it without any guidelines to, you think State Department of Education, they should have enough people to get together and think of some things, but it's falling flat. That's what I would have to say. But I did have a question when he's finished.
We'll come back to that. Ms. Taylor and then Mr. Wollaston.
Okay, so, because I just looked up online the districts that, were in those 3 different buckets, the full waiver, the transition, and the folks that have to, start from scratch. I didn't see CREC schools there.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Charters, correct?
I
No?
believe there are districts that didn't put a waiver in. Which I don't know how, I'm assuming I don't know for sure, so this would be an assumption, would be that they're just going to adopt one of the programs. You didn't have to put a waiver in. Some districts had already adopted programs, and so I'm not really certain. I think that's my assumption.
That was my question as well. I just kind of wanted to know whether if this also applies for our neighborhood charters
I
and
think we have a
magnets.
member of the CREC Council who happens to be here tonight.
All public schools.
And I would like to know how they're dealing with it as well.
So it was only a mandate for all public schools?
It's public schools, but the magnet schools are public schools, so,
Maybe they're either using it.
no?
They're not mandated under anything for the State Department of Education.
Let me just correct, yes?
Magnet.
Magnet, same. Magnet.
Charter schools that are not, that's not the same.
Certain charter schools.
Okay.
And so, because people confuse charter schools a lot. Charter schools are schools that basically have asked the state to let us be a school for 5 years, at minimum, right? 5 years, and we prove that we can do this thing. And so, I actually presented nationally on this like 10 years ago. 99% of them fail. They just don't even make the 5 years. So they're supposed to follow the same exact rules as the public school system. Now, I'm not arguing with you that people have turned blind eyes, done whatever, I don't know. But a charter school, by definition, in the United States of America, is supposed to follow the same rules as that local public education system. But people.
But they don't even have that certified teacher.
Ryan, that's what I said. I ain't arguing with you on at all. I'm not arguing that, but they're supposed to follow the same rules.
So, Ms. Taylor, I think on the list, at the beginning of the list, I think you'll see an Achievement First school, right? When you're looking at, I can't pull up mine, but, so that's magnet. I don't know.
Fanny Crack School.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh, it's a charter, okay. I can't, I don't want to give the wrong answer. I don't know.
Correct me tomorrow.
I don't think I think districts could choose, you don't have to put a waiver.
I can tell you, sorry.
No, please go.
I can tell you that CREC is actually dealing with the same thing. So I know Mr. Lockhart has mentioned Mr. Miller or Rep. Miller in Stanford.
No, Senator Miller.
Senator Miller, I
Yes.
apologize. So, but this was really the two thrusts for it were the Black and Latino caucuses. So Senator Doug McCrory and the Latino representative, I'm sorry, I'm blanking, is it New Britain? Is it New Britain?
Yeah, it's the person, he was the
So
chair.
those
from
two
Britain.
were the two who really pushed it. And again, because people have made it out over the last few years that, superintendents are fighting the whole idea of improving reading. That's not what people are trying to do. It's how it's implemented. Because here we are, think about it, we're sitting here looking to do cuts to our own budget just to get to the next year. And now you're being told, we're gonna have to implement a program by 2025. And the cost today, and we know how things work, right, economically, the cost today is 1.7 mil?
For
1.4, okay.
That's just one.
One particular.
One particular.
So, that's what I'm saying, today. So if things don't change, legislatively or from the State Department, we're gonna have to buy us something, and we know there's $1 million plus in and of itself just coming right back upon us. That's the issue that districts are having, that there's this mandate to utilize these very specific things with no real data to say, this was the magic pill, right? And I've said it publicly, and we'll say it again, I don't want to hear really about what they're doing in Mississippi or Louisiana or any one of those other deep South states that have been poor for years and decades and forever. And when you are already at the basement, anyone that understands any basic statistics, it doesn't take much to see 100% growth. From 2 to go to 4 is not a big deal. So when they say, well, they took off, that's what people try to claim, Mississippi or this state their scores went way up. Well, they were already at like 0. So there was not much to really improve there. And I just said it, so it's on record.
Any other questions? Mr. Wilson had you had mentioned with the bookworm about 70,000 for the pilot this year, and then if we implemented it, another 160,000. What about professional development time? Is that's probably doesn't include time for our teachers.
No, we would have to utilize the time that we already have available in our yearly calendar, which are usually 2 days in August, a day on election day, so November, and a day in February. And then if there was additional training needed, which, really training for something of this magnitude, 4 trainings really is not enough. Professional learning needs to be ongoing and frequent over the course of years for people really to master whatever that program is. But if we needed other time, we'd have to, work with the principals and figure out if there's ways to use early release days. It would be counterproductive to pull teachers out of classrooms when they're supposed to be instructing kids. So we'd have to leverage the days that we have, which is what we usually do when we're onboarding a program. That was part of our discussion with the company when Michelle really was the one leading that, but I was privy to some of those conversations and was really, again, leveraging what we have for time. That's a massive amount of people, so we wouldn't want to pull them out of classrooms when they're teaching. That would be tricky.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next item.
Like me to move to the next?
Is
Sure.
Portrait of
So-
a Graduate.
Sure. So moving from right to read to the topic of Portrait of a Graduate, I also wanted to start this update with a little bit of a definition or kind of a precursor to it, which is we have been doing this work for a while. You may have heard this called Profile of the Graduate, which is under the previous superintendent. It's the same thing. So Portrait of Graduate, Profile of the Graduate, it's the same terms. And what it is basically creating a holistic set of expectations for students that is really centered on transferable skills and dispositions that students should have to help them be successful once they're out in the world and once they graduate. So the idea is to have these expectations and to have them be embedded across all of our grade levels. So it's not just a high school thing. This is something where we would be looking to develop student skills, understandings, dispositions from kindergarten through 12th grade. And really with the idea of them, students being able to communicate well, collaborate, be professionals, and so on. This is a required component of our NEASC accreditation with NEASC at the high school, and feedback from the committee. We had a preliminary visit, was that we really needed to fine tune this. We had started the work before COVID. COVID hit, and then the work slowed around this. And for those of you on the board, or maybe you were active in knowing kind of what was going on in town at that time, we had conducted a number of surveys and collected stakeholder feedback from families, from the community, from teachers, students, and industry, business and industry partners. So we had several times during which we met with industry partners and got their feedback. So where we're picking up the work now and making sure we're fine tuning it and embedding it. We left off and we're gonna continue with the 5 attributes that were already identified pre-COVID as being the attributes necessary for Windsor students to sort of meet these expectations. These are the attributes. Having problem-solving skills, self-awareness, critical thinking skills, effective communication, and having social responsibility. And again, these came from the surveys, the different stakeholders, and our partnerships with businesses and industries in Windsor and the surrounding area. Right now, we have ongoing committee work happening at the district level and at the building levels. Principals are moving forward with committees that will help define what those attributes look like at the different grade levels. So like, for example, what does effective communication look like in first grade? What does self-awareness look like in 4th grade? And looking to the curriculum that we already have in place to see where we can assess these skills. We're not necessarily creating new ways to do that, but looking into the curriculum that we already have across subjects to see where can we and how can we assess these skills. And that's something Michelle and I will start to do over the summer, and auditing our current curricula to see where we might be able to find those throughways. Right now, the committee is going to work on establishing a final timeline for all of this and presenting it to the superintendent and the board. And that's where we are with this work. Future work will happen in the summer, and that's where we'll take a look at our curriculum and see where we have those inroads to these 5 attributes.
Thank you. Questions? Ms. Cantor and then Mr. Panos.
Thank you. In order to graduate from Windsor High School, a student must take and pass a Connecticut state mandated financial literacy class. And I was wondering why this is not included in the portrait of a graduate.
To be honest, I wasn't part of the original work, but from the work that I'm on now, I think we're not trying to overlap with graduation requirements. These aren't necessarily graduation requirements. These are expectations, sort of characteristics that we expect our students to have. I would imagine, though, that with financial literacy, I would think social responsibility, critical thinking, self-awareness, those skills are still part of the financial literacy course, but the financial literacy course is a graduation requirement, whereas these are, again, the best way I can describe it are attributes, characteristics that we want our students to have that will help them be successful beyond the classroom and beyond graduation. So we're kind of talking about 2 different things there, graduation requirements and then characteristics.
But then why does it say a portrait of a graduate? Because to me, the portrait of the graduate means that they already have attained these skills of fiscal responsibility. I know, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but I'm just
it's not my
curious.
term. Yeah.
Can I explain that?
Dr. Hill?
Okay.
So as Ms. Feynman said, so the portrait of a graduate, and this is all around the country as well, it is not a list of courses required for graduation. It's just not. It doesn't matter what the course is. So to use your example, there's nothing here that says the student is physically fit taking PE. That's not part of it. It's the major characteristics. If you can think of any kind of organization, I'm thinking like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, they have like a credo. So a Boy Scout is da-da-da-da-da-da, right? The military, soldier in the United States military is da-da-da-da-da. That doesn't name all the things that we've been taught to do. It's just these are the characteristics. So when someone looks at this young person coming out of Windsor High School and they say, that's a Windsor High School graduate, not by the courses specifically, but the characteristics of that person picked up through all the courses, throughout their education, throughout their time in the Windsor Public Schools. That's what these portrait of graduates are representing versus particular classes.
And if you look at many other portraits of graduates, they have some of these same themes and they have others. When I was involved with this project previously and attended certain sessions, including some that involved the business community, was trying to synthesize and not have 10 or 20 attributes that we all could agree on, including financial literacy. It was trying to say, what are the kind of 5 things that we want to make sure that kids in general have the skills to do. And we even talked back then about, should we be grading these things? If these things are more important than memorizing certain things in history or formulas. And I think the thought was, maybe down the road, some of that could be assessed, but it wasn't going to put another burden on teachers of how are you finding those attributes in your daily life, except to make sure that we want to have kids who can communicate, that we are critical thinkers and problem solvers. And the self-awareness or social responsibility, I'm not aware of those as to what was being discussed 3 or 4 years ago, but I know on the left-hand side of the aisle here were things that, that we had actively, and so it was really looking at all different actors. What does the professional people say? When you get kids from Windsor High School out in the workforce, what do you want them to be able to do? Well, obviously, there's not necessarily one set answer, but if you go to 5 or 10 businesses and you start seeing where those similarities are overlapping, that's when you get, and then you also are asking parents and teachers, et cetera, as to what was put in for this.
Well, I have a few more questions. Under critical thinking, it says, our students inquire thoughtfully. Why don't you just say demonstrating good manners, utilizing good manners? I think that was on I read this at home. Our students inquire thoughtfully, exhibit curiosity. Why don't you just say, instead of thoughtfully, why don't you say good manners? Because when you end up moving along, you always need good manners to inquire about things.
Well, there'll be a lot of questions, and they're just questions. But as the president said, when we went through these committees, so we didn't reinvent the wheel like we did. It was a long study, and we had the information sitting. And everyone comes up with their own terminology, and you would end up with a book of terms. So these are the characteristics that we came up with, very coalesced answers. And when you use something like that, the reason why you get there is because when you say good manners, I guarantee you we'll all have different answers, just the people sitting here on this dais. So that's not something that you could come to agree on because it's too general of a term. It's like when people say common sense. It's not common. So we can't actually use that. And I want to back up a little bit to what President Fury was saying. So these characteristics, Ms. Cantor, are also, they would drive all courses. So what we're talking about is not just having, a little flyer to put up around the district, but, our staff would be expected to be looking for and inculcating our students with these particular characteristics throughout their journey in Windsor Public Schools. So if I went into a classroom in I'll use financial literacy, go into a financial literacy classroom. Because I taught this, I know for a fact that all these characteristics can be discussed. So when you talk about good manners, how are you fiscally responsible so as to be a benefit to society?
You can be self-supportive of yourself. Fiscally, you pay your own way, and you take care of yourself first, and then you help others. Because if you're not taking care of yourself first, financially, you can't help others, because you're going to go down. Do you understand?
See how fast I taught you? That's why I miss teaching.
Pardon me?
I miss teaching. That's exactly the answer. If you can't take care of yourself first, then how can you help other people, right?
Yes.
So, but what I'm saying in that example, which you just so perfectly demonstrated, you've also demonstrated the ability to show good manners. So because you can take care of yourself, you can now be of benefit to society because you should be able to help other people. I think it's thought of that way. So it's just, you can't, and what I don't want, and I won't let my team do, we're not going to have a document with 5 million words. We're just not. Because it's nothing anyone's going to remember. It's going to become some piece of paper that's going to sit long after we're all gone. We want it to be something that all of our staff can look at. So my school safety officers, the teachers, not just certified staff, when we're dealing with our students, it's like, what are the things that we're looking for in a Windsor kid? And so you could also be addressing a kid. Let's say a kid was in a little bit of trouble. It's like, so are you demonstrating, good critical thinking skills? Why did you think this was a good idea to do this thing? So those are just little ways that you can ensure that students are learning these characteristics and embodying them along the way versus a particular class.
Because when they get out into the working world, and you know this, when you're in a position and you'll be questioned, why did you do this? And why didn't you do this? You know, it was a bad decision. Why did you do this? Because it all builds up to that in the end when you graduate.
And we
That's
want
what
to
I
have Windsor
wonder.
graduates who understand, you know, all of that, well-rounded.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Panos.
Yeah, a little bit to this. I would have expected something like a general topic called personal responsibility. We have here social, but personal would be, you know, like this, that you have personal ambitions to be productive and want to provide for themselves and have integrity in all dealings, take personal responsibility for one's actions, you know, to understand the value of responsible, you know, work and stuff like this. And it's not specifically in here. You have self-awareness, but
I think self-aware, Mr. Pounds, is exactly that. And it also, just to be clear as well, we also connect with the terms that are used with our SEL principles as well. So that's exactly what self-aware covers for a person, the very thing you just said.
The
There's
process.
a difference in wording.
And the process was, like Dr. Hill said and Mr. Fury said, this was like about 2 years of time that we got feedback and then had to synthesize a lot of different ideas and words into something that was actually tangible that we can put before students. And it was synthesized according to, you know, if more of the stakeholders were asking for certain qualities, then those are ones that we kind of put at the forefront of the list, so to speak. So we're seeing representation of what the stakeholders had said were important. And also had, like I said, had to synthesize a lot of different ideas and terms and thoughts from many, many, many different people.
If I could say though, Paul, I was one of the ones who brought it up during the discussion in our caucus meeting. There is a line in here. It says, take responsibility for personal actions. So I was happy to find that, just FYI. That is under social responsibility.
But that's not yeah, well, okay, you can call that, I guess, a social responsibility, but under personal responsibility, there are all sorts of things. So, you know, like thinking, a commitment to think logically, and not accept contradictions. This is essential for humans to even survive. And so, you know, but, and the idea of trading value for value, there's touched on over here. You know, the idea is that you create value by the work you do, and you create more value than you expect in return. And this is how value is created. You know, you'll learn to do your homework or something, you know. Anyway, I mean, if you think that's all in here, fine. I guess the everything is in the details here, and I would use different terminology. But anyway, I think I don't know how much different it is. You compare it with what we already have. We already have what you call a portrait or you know, of a graduate that
Well,
we worked
didn't.
on like about 10 or 12
We
years
don't.
ago.
We actually don't.
no, we
That was
don't.
the issue, is that we started that work to define the portrait before COVID, and then COVID hit, and things stopped and then slowed, and then because of our NEASC visit, we were sort of reminded that this is an area that we needed to pick up, finish and fine tune and get it out there. So we actually didn't have that complete, it was never completed.
Well, it wasn't called a portrait, but recall we had a whole session on it.
Yeah,
and
it was in 2000, it was in 2019.
10 or some 9 or something like that.
Yeah, it was 2019 was the last record I could find of coming before the board, and
Oh,
that.
no, I'm talking
But
about
with
way.
Silverman, we had schooling for community success and certain attributes of what that finally came out of all of that work.
This came in with Dr. Villar. I recall that he was the superintendent at the time, so this would have been around 2012, 11 or something like that. And, you know, it was a compendium similar to this of what you expect to find, you know, if you had to find it. So we don't have a record of that.
So I can tell you that there is nothing that was put forward for the whole district. That might have been something he might have shared with the board, something that he had aspired to.
No,
But in his
no,
18 months.
No, I was there. No. Yes.
I'm not arguing, but I have every record. So I just want to be clear. I have all superintendent records, and I make sure I look, so I'm confident in what I'm saying, that he did not produce a finalized product that had been implemented district-wide. That's what I'm telling you.
All right, I'll look at my records here.
Anybody else? Mr. Madison?
Yeah, at the highest level, I love and hate things like this. I hate them because, you can be squishy, and I've had to make things like this for my work too. And, but I love them because they do matter, right? Direction matters. And so at the most directional level, the only thing that goes through my head, I'll just throw this out there, do what you will with it, is I'm a fan of Jordan Peterson, and he has extensive psychological research in his background. And he says the three biggest determinants of success in life are to be smart, hardworking, and tough. And like it or not, those are the three things that correlate with success. So intelligence, hardworking in organization, and self-advocacy. And I believe those. So the first three are the part of SMART, right? Critical thinking, problem solving, effective communicator. That gives you the base intelligence skills. I don't see anything about hardworking and organized, and I have to believe the corporate environment, hardworking and organized matters. People who crank the hours and have their stuff locked down and organized and communicated matter. And then self-advocacy. I know that we emphasize a lot, like, understand yourself, okay? And then social responsibility is the world. But the ability to interact with the world is where self-advocacy comes in. So I would be a fan of putting something like that in there as well. Do with it what you will. I know you have a lot of work gone into it, but the research he can defend on that is very compelling, and those are the three biggest determinants. And if we added hardworking organization in there somewhere and self-advocacy, so it's not just me, it's not just social responsibility, it's the fact that I can advocate for myself in the realm of a social world is a pretty big thing. So my 2 cents, that's all. Otherwise, I think this is quite good. The only thing I would do is I'd put the bullets in the bottom in the same order as the top. It should go critical thinking, problem solver, effective communication, social, yeah, it should read in the same order as the diagram.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. No, thank you for the feedback.
Anybody else?
Where'd they get these pictures from?
So this diagram also, this is a draft presentation of, I don't know if I like this diagram. So just the one she came up with, so I agree with you, it may change. So it may look different. As far as characteristics, I don't know, because like I said, there was 2 years of research, with community, with businesses, corporate folks were involved in all this. So.
And I respect that.
So we didn't change anything that they said, we just brought the list down because one leader in literature would write these 3 characteristics, another will use different words and say basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Like grit became popular 15 years ago.
Yep.
And people really use the word wrongly, I will tell you that. So you don't make grit.
No,
Okay,
and that's.
grit tastes good, but
There you go. Well, that's why I reference my source, right? And I know that Jordan's piece is politically charged, but his credentials, if you leave out the politics, are substantial. The challenge with surveys is people answer things differently than they behave on the job. I don't know a single corporate executive who says, I'm going to hire the guy who works 35 hours a week instead of the guy who works 50 hours a week. You got to crank the time at some point, right? That's hard working. That matters. So behaviorally, I'd ask who has done the research. If you have a better person than Jordan Peterson, bring him. But research is just different than surveys, even among successful people.
oh, this wasn't surveys when we gathered the information. This was focus groups.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So the people were, well, no, they're not the same thing.
Not rigorous.
A focus group is not the same as a survey. I'm talking to you, so that means you're telling me, for example, everything you just said, you're lying because you're talking to me face to face. That's a focus group. So you can't say it's not as rigorous. You either telling me the truth or you're not.
I'm saying the people in focus groups tend to not even understand their own behavior when asked. That's my argument.
That's one researcher's presumption about focus groups.
That's fair.
Okay.
You
Because we have
your
to
position, I'll
validate
keep mine.
research when we do our research.
Yep.
And research bodies have to validate, if I'm going to do focus groups, I have people who are qualified, right? Psychometricians.
Yep.
So they're not going to just jump to that real quick. But we're having a philosophical debate in front of a bunch of people
Yep,
that are
that's
like,
cool.
what the heck are they talking about? Nothing.
My 2 cents have been submitted. Do with what you will. I'm in.
Ms.
Yep.
Taylor?
I was on the focus group, so chill. And it was, yes, I did tell the truth. And I could just say that there was just a robust group, and I only went for, I think, maybe 2 of the days. It was long, it was arduous work, and it was different groups of people, and businesses were there. I come from an HR background. I was there, and I was also there because I'm on the board and I'm a parent. And it was just a lot of work, and it was hard to to see that all that work, kind of just went to, bunk after COVID. So I'm really glad this came back. I will also share that my daughter just went through the National Honor Society process, and this is there. Like, it's not just academics. They don't care if you have straight A's. All of this information, she had to prove it. And so I think this is fantastic. I would love, for, it to look a little more buttoned up. Color graphics and all that stuff, but that's semantics. But I don't think that we should just try to wordsmith. We would really, get into the weeds of what we are supposed to do here from our seat. But great job. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All set?
Any other last questions? Okay, let's move on to the next item, increasing education diversity plan. I think, Ms. Batchelder?
Okay, so I sent the Board of Ed an email late this afternoon with the draft, and I also made a copy for everybody at the table. I know it's small print. I apologize. That is, this document is truly how the state wants it, and to fit on a page. So again, so this is a draft. We did tweak the theory of action since I sent it to you around 4:30 this afternoon, but it's the same theory behind it. We just made it a little more clear. So what the IED is, this is a state mandate that has actually began years ago, and then lately, or over the past couple of years, it's kind of reinvigorated itself. And now the state is putting more teeth, if you will, behind it, and hiring a consulting firm, and is making every district, 169 districts in the state, submit this plan. And the template that you see is exactly how the state is making us do it. So the IED plan, recruitment, hiring and selection, and then retention, and then going across are all the areas in which we need to fill in. Overall, it's said that the percentage of children of color are actually make up more than 56% of our students today. And with this, because our population is becoming more racially and ethically diverse, the growing body of research shows that children of color do better academically and socially when they have a teacher who looks like them in front of them. And so the need to recruit and retain teachers of color is at its highest point, and it's more as an urgent matter at this point, at the state level, policymakers, and obviously at the district level. Windsor, for at least since I have been here, has led the state in the numbers of teachers of color, educators of color, all staff of color. We absolutely lead the state in what we do. So what you see before you is really what we have been doing, will continue to do, and just fine tune what we're currently already doing in order to put it into a nice template that the state wants it in, to sum up the whole thing. I should say, does anyone have questions? But I'm a little scared. No, joking.
Questions? Mr. Panos?
So are there any concrete measurable goals that must be achieved by certain dates, or?
No, there's not.
And I assume there's nothing substantively lacking in our current plan compared to this thing, right?
No, I don't
since the
believe so.
one that was passed in 2017 or something.
Right.
So the committee, you mentioned one time, what is the committee for this?
So, this is obviously more of an HR
Sure.
project, because it has to do with hiring, selecting, retaining. However, district administrators absolutely play a huge role in it, especially our principals. And so that's why you see the different areas of who owns it and who manages each goal. So, and that, again, is a requirement of the state. So, for example, for the recruitment, we already partner with our colleges around the state. We already try to get as many student interns, student teachers as possible in our schools. And then oftentimes we end up hiring them, if not in that school, in another elementary school. So that's already something. So Marge Reno is our team facilitator. We have, I think I want to say close to 30 to 40 team mentors that are teachers in our district. So we're already, doing all of this work. But to just give you an example, so, that was something that, a goal to continue to do that work. As you will see, everything that is really laid out, it's a continuation of something that we're already doing. But for the committee, the state, wanted you to pull different people, including HR, obviously. So Marge Reno is the team facilitator, who I thought would be a great asset because she already is embedded in that work. Dr. Mallory, already embedded in that work and has been on a lot of hiring committees with me and other administrators, and also at career fairs. Bonnie Feynman, same thing. I always look to her for, come to career fairs with me. She's got a great way of selling our district. So I was just looking for people like that know our district, been in our district, can sell our district, and understand how we do what we do in Windsor on the committee.
Right, so everyone is competing for what is available. That's it.
Yep, but that's always been. And we
Yes,
are definitely
there certainly
leading the
has been.
state.
And that explains, of course, the numbers, right, the percents. That's really the explanation, the percent of who receive, or certificate, holders, in education. So if the numbers, if all of them were of color, then all the teachers would be of color, right? If all the teachers, if all the graduates of teacher schools were of color, then all the teachers would eventually would be of color. So it's a function of how many people, graduate in education. Now, I see we have efforts, of course, to do homegrown, and so, now, how do you, but of course, everybody's competing for this, so there's no real way to assure that they're going to come here unless you have some hook. I guess maybe the relay or something, you can make
The homegrown part is our current.
you make a little, make a deal with them and say, you got to owe us money back or something?
Dr. Hill?
So I want to back up and answer, because I've actually been on this committee. This is, as Mr. Pano said, rightfully, the law was like 2017, but I've actually been on the committee since like 2009, before I left Windsor the first time. So, yes, there are fewer students of color graduating from our teacher ed programs, particularly here in the Northeast. So that's true. However, what we've had the state admit, the people who are on the Increasing Educator Diversity Committee and have been for over a decade plus, is that they finally looked at their data, and the reality is there are many, many, many hundreds of teachers of color certified, recently certified, and they're in Connecticut, but they're not getting hired by districts that don't have, I'm gonna be nice for a minute, an appreciable number of students of color in their district. So they don't feel the need to hire these teachers. So
What? I didn't hear you.
districts that are whiter,
Yeah.
that don't have a lot of students of color,
Yeah.
don't hire teachers of color in Connecticut.
Generally, yeah.
And that's what's come out. And so that's where that law and the push, even though, so I was in HR, as you know, doing the hiring before all of this came along. That's why we have a better record, better percentages than other districts across the state. The only districts that beat us are the big inner city districts, and they only beat us based on numbers, not per capita. So it's more than just there aren't these people there. The point of this from the state is that you districts across the state, you guys, like, they're available, they're certified, they're qualified. Why aren't you hiring them? So that, I just wanted to add that in there, that it's not just the number coming out of our schools of ed. There's another issue at play.
Well,
That's what, and I didn't come up with the law, but I know that's also part of the law.
I mean, if you have a limited number, it's only going to be, you're only going to have so many, so it would spread it, that's all. And we would have less, and other towns like Heartland would have more.
No, but I'm saying, Mr. Panos, that's not actually accurate. That's why I said what I said. There are over 700 certified educators of color who are not working in any Connecticut school system right now. They're not in a school. They're certified. They're qualified people. And they've been qualified. Now this will be about 6 years.
But I think
And that number
where he
stayed the
was
same.
going, maybe where he was going with this is now we're going to have even more, it's going to be tougher for you, because there's going to be more pressure
ain't worried
on a
about
lot of the outlying schools, in Union and other places, because the state's going to be watching, are they hiring?
Well, if all these were, if all these 700s were always available, then we would have 100%, or we have an 80% minority right now, because we've been minority hiring since I've been on the board.
So,
Dr. Silverman was
yeah.
huge on this, so I mean, if they're available, why don't you hire nothing but?
So, I mean, if you may, Dr. Hill, so in my tenure here, and one of the things that we do still need to work on in Windsor, absolutely, is, ensuring that the people that are on the hiring committees that are selecting the staff for their building actually are trained on implicit biases. And they call it, people do what they call a mini me syndrome. They like to hire people that look like them. And that is, but I'm just telling you what the facts are, Mr. Panos, and that's why we all have to still work on it. We all have to, still have professional development and learn and teach staff on,
I'm not sure
don't
that's
need to have you look like me to hire you. We need that diversity so everyone sees each other in the curriculum and by the students. They see who they are in their teacher. They don't want to see me telling them how to learn to do what my culture is when that's not their culture. And if I don't know their culture, how am I going to teach them?
Well,
So we need to, teach people that.
Okay, according to that logic, then, we should have segregated schools.
Oh, see, that'll do it.
According to that logic, every student of color should have a teacher of color. Everyone who's not, who's what we call white, should have a white. And I mean, this would go together with this, what you said earlier, that students learn better when they have a teacher who looks like them. So, I mean, I don't believe that. So, but that's the logical implication of what you're saying. I don't think you mean that, do you?
No, she doesn't mean that.
No. Well, she said it.
Well, then it came out wrong. So that's not what the focus of this is, so I'm gonna go back to it. It's not the focus. The point of this, because again, I'm gonna keep saying the law, and what the state board has come up with, the point of this is that teachers of color are not getting hired. That's the point.
Well, if there are a lot, we've been hiring teachers all along. And well, you were HR for 5 years, and you've been superintendent, what, for 3? So, I mean, and even before that, there was a tremendous emphasis on this sort of thing, and so if they have been available all along, we should have 50-60% of color teachers.
And so
obviously you've had difficulty doing that.
That should have, but it hasn't been because we didn't. I know you keep focusing on Windsor because this is where we're at, but I'm saying, like, remember, this is for the whole state. This is just us doing our part, filling out the template, but even Windsor hadn't. So when I came back here in 2014, do you know the percentage of staff of color certified that we had in Windsor?
About 12%?
Yep, 11%. You know what it is now?
18?
18 floats to 21. So we've grown significantly. We're doing the best, but you don't just discriminate and say, I'm not hiring anyone else. You're hiring great candidates, but you're giving people opportunities. That's, again, I'm gonna keep stressing on the point of the law. I'm not talking about this template being, again, the best format thing, but the whole idea, it's not that if, I don't want you to think, leaving tonight, if there were more teachers of color, then they could be hired, because there are enough. They're there.
Well,
they're there. They just need the opportunities like everyone
well,
else.
yeah, but on the one hand, you're saying that obviously they're not using them.
They're not hiring them.
They're not hiring, right, so they don't, so they're not, we're not making use of the pool of qualified teachers of color. So we've been doing this for at least 24 years, even earlier than that. Dr. Myers was doing this. So that's us, but everybody else is doing the same thing. Even Hartford doesn't have a majority of color teachers, right? No. So they have, and they've had active HR on this sort of stuff.
But you kind of threw a general statement when you said a bunch.
This is the,
They
yeah,
have a percentage.
if they're all available, if
Okay.
they're all available and everyone is actively looking for them, you know, you're saying that.
But they're not. That's what I keep saying. They're not. And so they haven't been. And so the state and the law is that they're telling districts with as much vigor as they can, that this is what we want you to do. They haven't been. People have talked for a lot of years, but they have not. Or we wouldn't have a pool of 700 who are still sitting around, but people go to college for 4 years, come out of the program, and they're hired immediately into teaching, while those same people who have been certified before these folks even started college to get certified are still looking for jobs.
Okay,
There's no clean way to
I'd
talk
like to take a
about
look at the numbers. I mean, in the past, when this was looked into, even when Dr. Cook was on there, well, it depends on when he was, early or later, but it was always a problem. This is what they would come back and would say that the percent graduating would be in the, let's say, single digits. So therefore, they're not available. That was what had been, that's, you know, back from the 90s. And now all of a sudden, there's a huge overplus.
But, no, we have not disagreed. But what you're skipping is the meat of what I'm saying. I don't care if the percentage was single digits, right? If there are 5% of people of color coming out of all the schools of ed here in the Northeast certified, I'm telling you, very few of the 5% were even getting an opportunity to get a job. That's what I'm saying to you.
Well, all right. I mean, that's what you're saying. The question is, you know, is it true? You know, are the statistics correct? I mean, if there are 700, okay, how many of not of color, let's say whites, are available and not?
Thousands.
How many?
Thousands.
So it's general. It's a general problem, right?
No, it's because there's one group that is much larger, as you said from the beginning, going to school, going through teacher ed programs, getting certified. If you got 10 people in this group going into the pipe, and you got 2 in this group going into the pipe, they're going to continue to come out at disproportionate numbers. But even if the 2 coming out, some years none of the 2 are getting hired, other years one of the 2 is getting hired. But with the 10, a good portion of the 10 are constantly getting hired. 7, 8, 9, some years 10, some years 5. But there's always so many more of them. So they're like, well, why aren't these other folks getting opportunities? Not arguing about numbers being lower. I have not disagreed. Numbers, because they are different. If we were in southern states, then we would have access to our historically black colleges and universities where they have much larger numbers, obviously, of students of color coming out of their teacher ed programs. Those schools look a bit different, but we're in the Northeast.
Right. Traditionally, districts with a lot of students of color, like Hartford and Waterbury, whatever, have had earlier programs for pursuing this. And those of us who have, you know, other higher percentages, typically, And they make a stronger effort for it, for the reasons that you gave. And so that it really explains it, but anyway.
I agree.
Anyway, all right.
Ms. Taylor, then Ms. Cantor. Back and forth.
Yeah.
I just want to lift something. That's not what you said. That's not what you said. That's not what you said. It's all right. I do want to lift the fact of the statistic that even white children do better having an educator in their tenure, in their time of color. It's statistically proven. If you see anyone in a diverse capacity at the front of your classroom, they really do. It's statistically proven. It's not just children of color, it's white children even do really well with diverse educators. So I just wanted to share that. But I think what Dr. Hill was trying to share is that this template in some districts in Connecticut, especially, Connecticut is, we have some really different types of districts. They don't all look like Windsor. They don't all look like, this dais. Those areas need this. But for equity, everybody's doing it to show not only best practices, but so they can see where the gaps are, so they can share how other districts can do better. Did I do it good? Is that right? Okay. This is what I do. So I'm very, very versed in all the things that we do here. Even if we were to take all educators of color that don't have a job right now, first of all, we don't have enough FTEs for that. But even if we did, that doesn't really make sense. This type of project plan is for the districts that need it. So I'd be willing to bet you I'm not going to call the towns out, but they're not going to have this stuff filled in. They didn't even probably realize the relay was an option. They didn't realize that, guess what? By and large, young educators who just got out of school, if they don't see someone in the building that looks like them, they at least need a mentor. They didn't realize that you probably need to have some social, some climate engagement surveys along the way to make sure that they're good. Are they checking in on these young educators? Young educators, period, not even just educators of color, need a mentor. And so this right here, which is lovely, I think it's great, is important not only for the districts that are doing well like Windsor, but finding the holes, because nothing's perfect, because I'm sure we'll learn some other things that maybe other districts have implemented that we may have missed out along the way. But I think that is what they're trying to convey.
Ms. Cantor.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. I'm solicited all the time.
To do what now?
Nursing.
Oh, okay.
That's why I got your attention. No, I am. It's chronic. It's 24/7. And, I have a state license, state of Connecticut. And on your licensing, when you fill out the information, when you're recertified and everything, they ask your age, where you went to college, what your specialties are, your ethnicity, everything. So you should be able to get some type of listing from the state, because they keep track of it, because I'm solicited all the time by mail, email, phone calls, everything. So you should be able to find, if you need more teachers of color, you should be able to find that, because you have to list that on your licensing.
But that's performative.
Thank you. What's that?
But that's performative. Just to call you because somebody's black and they have their licensure? No, we don't want to do that.
Well, you don't have to do that, but you can get the whole listing of who's certified, and you should be able to see that.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
companies buy that, and that's what they do. So I just wanted to make that availability to you. Thank you.
Mr. King?
Yeah, sorry, I think Vice President Taylor kind of spoke to what I was doing. I just wanted to confirm. So this is just a legally required HR plan for diversifying our staff? Yes. Okay, great. thank you for putting it together. It's a lot of work. And also thank you for mentioning unconscious biases. That's like a real issue in hiring processes. When people talk to folks and going through training about that, it's super important to like recognize that as a whole. I think it's awesome, and I'm glad we're ahead of the curve, and I hope we can appreciate it and move on.
Mr. Madison?
Yeah, is this ever going to come to a vote?
So it does, state law makes it have board approval. So in May, it will come back to you. We are submitting it, whether there becomes a vote or not, because we have to. But one of the requirements is a board vote.
We
But-
have to vote for it.
So, I mean,
Yes, democracy in action.
There you go.
We appreciate your yes vote in advance,
How about, we'll make it a no vote. You gotta have one no vote.
Yeah. So I'd like to advocate something, because I've talked about the diversity issue, even at my own company, all the way up to the person, our chief DE&I officer who reports to the CEO. And I have a position that she summarized beautifully after listening to me rant for 45 minutes. I promise it'll be much shorter. I'm a capitalist.
Thank you.
For being a capitalist?
Giving you shorter than 45 minutes.
What else is?
So I am a big believer in capitalism. I'm a big believer in free market economics, right? And so I believe that the overwhelming hiring principle has to be, we hire, promote, and retain the best person for the job all the time, every time, without exception. And I also believe that if you hold anybody back from that, that is a problem, right? And I want everybody to be involved in that and participate in that. And so, and I do that for nationalistic reasons. You need the whole country pulling as strongly as it can in the right direction. If everybody can pull in their own best direction, their own best strength, that's how you win. If you hold anybody back from that, you're holding the whole country back, not to mention the individual. And so I'm a big believer in that notion, and when it comes to hiring. And that's different than making like diversity to the first goal. So to me, the first goal has to be, what is your objective? And the objective is to hire, promote, and retain the best person for the job all the time, every time. And then the second thing is, don't hold anybody back from that. And if people are being held back, which obviously happens because people like to hire mini-me's, that's a reality, right? No matter what your demographics are, you hire mini-me's, so everybody has to be careful about that, right? But if you look at that and you say, okay, I want to hire the best people for the job, to me that's the second wave, right? And that's to say, yeah, anybody, regardless of the demographics, is the pool we're going to look at. You can even make the argument that some of your demographic traits make you better for the job, right? So I'll give you an example from education. I think if a kid is black and poor, and he has a tendency to speak African-American vernacular English, right? If you have a teacher who also knows how to speak African-American vernacular English, the formal term, right? Then they can connect in a way that I don't think someone who doesn't have the ability to speak that dialect can, right? That they couldn't. And you can't fake it because that, is either ineffective or racist, right? And so there are other traits. I happen to like black cops, right? Because it's like, okay, you can't call them racist for doing a hard job when you're watching the body cam footage. So it's especially amusing when young white women call black cops racist. I love those videos. But I think the inherent having of certain traits actually does matter. And so if we said in something like this, we absolutely hire and promote and retain the best person for the job all the time, every time, meaning our teachers, and we want to make sure that we have no barriers to that so that everybody can participate in that, and we even believe that there are situations where having certain demographic traits matters. To me, that breakdown is really good at avoiding the problem of overlooking at the diversity concern, because then I worry about something like Ibram Kendi, some of you heard me quote it. He says to be anti-racist, you have to be anti-capitalist. And I think that's completely the wrong recipe, right? Because capitalism is how you rise up economically. I want everybody in that capitalist process. So is it possible to reword this a bit to say, yeah, we absolutely hire the best person for the job all the time, every time, without exception? And we believe to do that, we have to make sure not only that we're holding nobody back based on any demographic traits, but also we see value in some of those demographic traits and then break it down. I know it's embedded in here and mix and match, but to me that decomposition really matters. Because if you break it down that way, now you can get away from the problem I have with things like Kendi saying, yeah, you have to be anti-capitalist if you're anti-racist, which I think is wrong. I think communities that embrace capitalism actually get a lot of strength from it, just like the Asian community did after World War II, where they were destitute, and now they outpaced people who are white. So if we did that kind of decomposition, I'd be happy to support something like this. So that's my first one. Can we decompose the notion of, damn it, we hire the best person? And, it's a both and kind of situation, that means don't hold anybody back. But not only that, there is richness and diversity, and I agree. My white kids love their black teachers. They rock on, man, it's great. So that's thought number one. The other thing is, again, I asked if it's coming to a vote, because if it's not coming to a vote, I'm just advocating for people who like to think about, hey, is there a way to do this that kind of brings everybody together? But the other one is, I'm a little uncomfortable with the BIPOC phrase in here. If we could just replace that with the word diverse across the board, simply because BIPOC is too constraining. Even if you go out and try to research the term, you don't always know exactly what groups it's talking about. I looked through this. If we just replace BIPOC with diverse across the board, I think that fits. And the other reason I'm an advocate of that is that I think there's a problem with having enough men in education. And I don't know what our exact numbers are, but the fact is, this is a female-heavy discipline, right? Just like in IT where I am, it's male-heavy. It's not necessarily because of bias. We could debate that. But you got to admit, men are attracted to IT. There's a lot of them going that way, and you have to admit, women are attracted to education. There's a lot of them going that way. But here I'm about to use demographic traits. I do think male teachers have a role. I was at an event with the teachers, and I was with 3 or 4 guys. I think Dr. Mallory was one of them. And we were talking about, you got to kick your kid's butt sometimes. It's like, I'm stereotyping, but that's a bit of a manly kind of, I let kids fall down the stairs and scrape their knees. Too bad, you little bastard, right? So that kind of thing. So I do think that male is a part of that. And if we say BIPOC, that's too constraining. If we just say diverse, it can be used to mean anything. And that's where I am. So if this comes to a vote, I'll be happy as a Republican to devote a diversity measure in favor of it. But if you can break out that we hire the best person all the time, and here's some other stuff we believe that relates to diversity, and we loosen the BIPOC a bit, those would be 2 things that I'd look for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say this, because,
Please.
and I don't want to belabor tonight, because I'm hungry. It's been a long day. I'm sorry, I'm hungry. We hire the best person every time. Theoretically, we are 100% in the same place. But that has been a statement used by white society for a long time, and it doesn't really happen. And no one, depending on your political affiliation, I ain't talking about Republican, Democrat, I'm talking about where you stand, what you believe in. Because I'm a business major, entrepreneur, businessman. I believe in capitalism. But I'd be lying if I said our capitalist society hasn't been a discriminating system for a long, long time. So just saying we hire the best people, we know that's not true. Everyone in the room knows that. We hire the person who may have skills, or we hire the person who has the best connections. That's really how our capitalist society works. Now, I'm not here trying to start an argument for the night. I'll buy you dinner tomorrow night and argue with any one of you over it. But if you look at our current political system, it shows you, you cannot tell me nor yourselves that those are the best men or women sitting in those positions, either side of the aisle, they were the best qualified person for the job. You would be lying to yourself, and I would be lying to myself. They were the person with the best connections at that time. And historically and currently in this country, if you are a person of color, you do not have those same levels of connections. Therefore, you typically do not get the same opportunities.
Can I address that?
And I researched that for my PhD, and you can say it's soft, but I got almost 1,000 people around the entire globe reading it.
I read it too.
They're not in black countries, so somebody believe in it.
All right, so hang on. So I've read your PhD.
Just saying.
I read your PhD, and I was going to cite it if you didn't. So I agree with you. Connections matter, right? And the example I always give is I go
Appreciate
out with,
that.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with PhD. Look, I go out with male coworkers. Right? But I go out with male coworkers.
What more do you want?
I go out with male coworkers all the time, like camping trips overnight, right? And you don't go out with female coworkers on camping trips and long bike rides in the woods, okay? What is happening? My point is, I'm going somewhere with this. I'm reinforcing your PhD. I'm saying, no, it's just coworkers going out, right? So if I spend 8 hours to 16 hours day after day camping trip talking about work with my coworkers, those male younger coworkers are getting my 25 years experience. That's huge. So that's why I agree with your PhD, 100%. But hang on, in some ways you're making my point, right? I want to separate the two because I don't say that hire the best person for the job has been done right. That's exactly why I say and it hasn't. But my concern is I look at Kendi, right? And I see him throwing out the baby with the bathwater. That's my concern. To say, no, we have effed it up, right? And I cited Martin Luther King at the MLK Day, right? He talks about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution right in his I Have a Dream speech. And he says, you ain't doing it, right? So my point is I don't want to abandon it and take the Kendi path, say, let's throw out capitalism. I don't think anything else works. I want to say it hasn't been done right. Let's get it right. But if you separate those two notions, then you have a chance in that. My only concern is it's too easy to say, well, diversity is the focus. It's like, no, greatness is the focus, and diversity builds that. I know that sounds like nuance, but to me, that's a totally different argument. So I'm with you.
But I'm just saying we're just trying to meet the states.
we're just trying to say.
Wait, let me address that.
I just,
One at a time here, hold on.
But we have freedom over these two paragraphs, right? So I'm saying restructure these two bullets right here to that structure and replace BIPAC.
Then you get
and
his
I'll vote
vote.
for it.
If we could move this along, Mr.
we
Perry.
have, I'll just have one, all right, okay, this is the first time I hear that only connections is the way you get into the NFL and the NBA. Is that the idea? You're
Just, you keep throwing in one different word. Didn't say only.
the only way
I
you
said the
get
most
to be.
important connection are connections. And yes, talk to some of our Windsor alums that played in the pros. And you'll say, well, why is this person no longer still in the pros with his skill set? And why is that person still in the pros at the end of somebody's bench getting $2 million a year and ain't threw a touchdown in 12, 13 years?
Well,
It's their connections.
It doesn't happen all, it's not going to be perfect.
Nothing, no, you're
But
right.
you're going to make it,
You're
you're
right.
going to make it 100% that way, that everybody hired here is just because of connections.
He didn't say that, but let's, Ms. Cantor, if it can be quick.
Thank you. My husband wasn't hired because of connections. My husband was hired because of his intelligence and his qualifications and ability to perform for the military. Thank you.
Okay. Since there's no vote being taken on this,
No.
move on to the
Next item.
next item, committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Seeing and hearing none. Other matters, announcements, regular Board of Ed meeting. Next board meeting is Tuesday, May 21st, 7 PM in the LPW boardroom. Other items for people around the room, starting with Mr. King. Any announcements?
No, thank you. Have a nice night.
Mr. Madison?
No.
Mr. Wollaston?
So I'd just like to say Union Tavern is officially closed.
Mr. Panos,
that? I
you
missed
made us miss the Union Street Tavern.
I heard the word tavern. You going? Oh.
Why?
It's too much talking.
Ms. Cantor, anything to add?
I do. Don't forget the Shad Derby, May 14th.
18th.
Oh, I'm sorry, the 18th. I got the 4th in my head. Because of the ball. I'm sorry. Because
on
of
the
May
4th.
4th is the ball, the coronation ball. It's during the week.
That's the pre-shed
The week,
derby.
the free Shad Derby. Thank you.
Mr. Lockhart?
Hayden Station Fire Company is having their annual pancake breakfast this Saturday, I believe from 7 to noon or 11.
7-Eleven.
The price is $15, all you can eat. So please come out and support Hayden Station Company. And I would be remiss not to say happy 15th birthday to my baby girl, Brielle.
Mr. Halleck?
Thank you, Mr. President. This Sunday, the Windsor Police Department is doing a Tipicop event, which will benefit a Special Olympics. It's going to be held at Jim's restaurant in Windsor.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Howard, you said Ellington Police Department?
Windsor Police Department.
And they're holding a what?
It's called a Tipicop fundraiser. Yep. And so that event will be going on from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at Jim's restaurant here in Windsor. Always a great event. And there's a Veterans and Military Appreciation Day on Saturday, April 20th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Right here at LP Wilson Community Center. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor?
April is Autism Awareness Month, so I am always cheering on all of my friends and family on the spectrum. And congratulations to Nathan Wollaston and Dr. Dana Bramble on their upcoming nuptials.
Mr.
My
Panos?
baby.
Nothing, thank you. Nothing to report.
Just a reminder, one of the items was supporting Windsor Education Foundation, and the chamber auction this year on Friday, April 26th, part of the proceeds will go to WEF. And looking for one more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Oh, second.
Wait, yes.
Others do.
Oh, audience to visitor.
Oh, what a clever thing. We almost violated.
Darn.
Boy, oh, boy.
Miss Daly, will you read your script?
Good evening, this is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. If anyone from the public would like to address the board, you may do so in two ways. You may type your name, address, and comment to the Q&A feature in the Zoom application, or you may speak by clicking raise hand and dialing *9 on the Zoom app. When you are called on to speak, you will be given 3 minutes to state your name, address, and comment. Please do not place the call on speakerphone. No comments can be made against the employees of the school district or children outside of your own, and no comments will be made by the board at this time.
Is there anybody with a raised hand in the public domain?
There are several attendees, but none have their hands raised.
Is there anybody in the LP boardroom that would like to address the board? Seeing and hearing none?
She's a citizen. She has a right to speak.
She has a right to read, right. So at this point, is there a motion? I'm closing audience to visitor.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions. Motion carries